Nem lesz druid. Már túl vagyunk a klassz jelentőn. Na de jó, akkor arról lecsúsztunk. Hol találom a streamet? Kik streamelik ezt? Kik streamelik ezt? Nem tudsz linket küldeni. Mondd a nevét, és akkor meg fogom találni. GGG, oké. Twitch-en így vannak, hogy GGG. Games TV. Gondolom ez az. GGG Games TV. Az az. Nem, ez nem azok. Várjál, GGG Live. Ez nem az. GGG Live. Azaz. Na várjál, de nekem ez nem németül kell. Official Broadcast. De várjál, itt azt írja, hogy 59 perc múlva indul. What? A francokat, várjál. 7 perc. Na most az élőben megy, vagy mi a tökön van? Megy élőadásban. Hát akkor valamit én nem találok. GGG Live. Official Broadcast. Path of Exile 2 1 órával ezelőtt. Live. Az a baj, nincs bekövetve. Tehát valahogy csak megtalálom. Hát ezt nem hiszem el. GGG. Ez a csatorna neve, hogy GGG Live. Nincs aláhúzás, vagy valami. Írd már be pontosan, hogy mi a csatornának a neve. Mert így nem találom, az a baj. Így nem találom. De ez is jó, hogy így bazd beírja az ember, azt nem bírja megtalálni. Path of Exile. Na jó, de most Path of Exile 2. Itt maradtál? Helyes, helyes. Nem találom így, hogy Path of Exile 2 egyébként. Tehát nem, milyen címszó alatt csinálság 2 nélkül? Path of Exile. A Path of Exile alatt streamelik? Path of Exile alatt streamelik ezt? Hát én nem látok ilyet. Fél már DC-re dob már be nekem a izét. DC-re dob már be a linket, mert így nem találom. Ez kizárt, ez hihetetlen, hogy nem bírom megtalálni egyébként. Ez kézbe azért. Jól elrejtik magukat, hogy véletlenül se találd meg. Nem is hiszem el, bazd meg. Felkérte a Discord. Hát erről lemaradtunk akkor. GGG Live Official Broadcast, ilyet találtam, Path of Exile, de nálam ez meg nem tehát itt ez megállt. Vagy ez nincs Twitch-en, csak YouTube-on, vagy? Nem, ez az szerintem megvan.
Sacrifice and plague.
Megvan.
The corrupted life force skill causes all enemies around you to grow volatile blood boils on their skin. When those enemies are slain, the boils will burst, spreading corrupted blood to all enemies around them. The ritualist also excels in taking advantage of magical trinkets. The unfurled finger skill allows you to equip an additional ring on a finger around your neck. Taking Mystic Attunement increases the bonuses of all the rings and amulets you have equipped. Now, this is one of my favorites. As the Whisper's Ask grants you a new skill, Ritual Sacrifice. Use the skill on the corpses of slain rare monsters to absorb the power in their blood, to give you one of their modifiers for a short time. Specialize further into Ritualistic Sacrifice with As the Whispers Demand, which allows you to perform that skill on yourself instead of a corpse. Cut your own hand, sacrificing some of your own blood to empower yourself. The Amazon Ascension is for those looking to hunt more than just beasts. Trained as an elite guard to the most important as Mary
Akkor nem druid jön,
Amazon will
bugi.
use more
Nem
traditional
akarnak
fighting
elkeseríteni, de úgy látszik
techniques.
nem druid jön.
The Predatory Instinct skill will cause you to reveal weaknesses in the defenses of rare and unique enemies, causing you to deal more damage. You can see those weak spots represented
Ez
in their
lesz,
life
ez a Huntress lesz.
While using Elemental Infusion, any charges you consume will infuse your weapon with elemental
Ezek
power,
szerint.
causing any projectile attacks to explode on impact. The Critical Strike skill is as simple as it sounds. It takes your excess accuracy and gives it to
Ez
you.
király, ezt tudjátok mire hasonlít? Mint a D2-be az Amazon, a Javelin-es Amazon.
Harvest, which allows your elemental damage to leech life, and as Mary Brew to be able to use either flask to restore both.
Ez nekem arra hasonlít. 100
So
plusz
those are
új
the two new
skill
ascendancies for
érkezik.
the Huntress.
Az
But
komoly.
those are not the only ascendancies in Dawn of the Hunt. We've added a new ascension class for 3 of the other existing classes too.
Na most
First up,
jönnek
for
a
our warriors out there, we have
Warrior.
the Smith of Katava. The warrior is a blacksmith in origin, taught by his father Renly. With this ascension, you can take your smithing skills to new heights by embracing power from the insatiable one himself, Kitava. Smiths of Katava are master blacksmiths
Új
and have the
ascendencek
ability
is
to
jönnek,
forge
aha.
their weapon, quite literally.
Aha, látom, itt
Using
van.
the Against the Anvil notable skill,
Ugye,
you can
ez nem
enhance your
volt
weapon with
eddig, nem?
fiery destruction before any battle.
Oda néz.
After doing so, your attacks will release explosions
Az
on hit
igen.
for maximum devastation. You can also use the power of Kitava to summon an animated copy of your weapon to
Lol.
fight alongside you. A great blacksmith can do more than just forging their weapon though. Their armor can be enhanced too. Now you might think this ascendancy class tree looks a little abnormal, and you're right. There's a lot of notable skills all disconnected at the bottom there. By taking this point here, which is free to assign, your character is unable to equip body armors with mods of any kind. So your body armor must be normal. Sounds like a downside, right? Except now in true blacksmith
nálam
fashion,
is
you get
vannak
to craft your
droppok.
own body armor by taking those disconnected notables
Nálam
with
is
your
vannak
mods.
droppok.
If you want your body armor to grant life, take this notable. If you want resistances, take this one. There's so many choices. Think of it like you're crafting your own body armor, just in a more literal sense. Now, let's move on to those who prefer the reassuring feel of a crossbow in their hands.
Nálam miért nincsenek droppok?
Alongside the existing Ascension classes, the Gemling Legionnaire and the Witch Hunter,
Az
you
hogy
can
lehet,
now
hogy az
play as the
Izarannál van
Tactician.
drop, nálam meg nincs?
The Tactician is a former Blackguard elite. Free from the duties of a Blackguard, he is able to use his training to decimate the monsters of Rayclast and earn a healthy income doing so. This training comes in the form of various skills like suppressing fire, which causes all projectiles to pin enemies. When combined with the right where we want them notable, your pin not only stops your enemies from moving,
Aha, azon
but stops
megállítja
them
őket
from
egy helybe, ez a
performing actions
pineli
too,
őket.
similar to freeze. With a soldier's training, the Tactician also works well cooperatively.
Valami
Using
bendereket
the
lerak.
whoever pays best notable, you can place multiple banners at once.
Ez
The
miért
Watch
jó?
How We Do It skill gives a portion of your weapon's damage to your allies as well.
Ez komoly, mit lőtt,
But if that
hallod?
isn't enough, you can also command your army of off-screen archers to unleash hell and carpet an entire
Mindjárt
area with
megnézem én
arrows.
azt.
Finally, Witch players will be able to join their legions by becoming undead themselves. In
Pillanat.
Dawn of the Hunt, we're introducing the Lich Ascension class. The Lich is a master of chaos and curses and could sacrifice her life to enhance her energy shield. The Crystalline Phylactery skill allows you to nominate a jewel in which to contain part of your soul, massively increasing its power. There's just one downside to splitting your soul this way though. If you have no energy shield, your mana costs will shoot up.
Path of Exile 2 itt van.
The Necromantic Conduit skill causes you and allies in your presence to have
Szóval ugrás,
unholy
ez,
might, granting extra damage as chaos damage. Rupture the Soul makes enemies you curse explode with chaos damage when
De
slain.
pedig nálam is kéne, hogy legyen drop.
Dominion over Flesh allows you to apply an additional curse.
Szerintem. Csak még engem nem
It's
érzékel,
safe to
aha.
say you'll be the true master
Ja,
of
mert
the
várjál,
occult by
Twitch-en nem
using the
írtam
Lich
át magam, baszki. A fuck.
So Dawn of the Hunt has the
Gyorsan.
Huntress and 5 new Ascension classes.
Bocsánat,
But it doesn't end
azért nem lehet
there. Let's take a
droppokat
look at some of the
szerezni.
new skills we've added. Now you may remember we previously talked about the Raised Spectre skill. It's finally complete and it will be made
Drops.
available in the upcoming expansion. It can be found in the occult skills on the skill gem crafting panel. Raised Spectre is a skill that allows you to trap the soul of almost any monster in the game, which you can then summon in the skill panel. Spectres cost spirit and will revive automatically if they die, but the spirit cost varies based on the power of the monster. You could summon an army of weaker monsters.
Most már elvileg majd, ha érzékelj, akkor kéne droppokat is tudni gyűjteni.
You can combine them with your existing skeleton minions, or summon exclusively specters. It's all up to you and how you want to customize your army of the undead. Given that there are hundreds upon hundreds of monster variants in Path of Exile 2, it's safe to say you'll be experimenting with this one for a while. We look forward to seeing which monsters serve you best. Now let's move on to our next skill. Since we've been talking about summoning undead so much,
igen, durva, hogy mennyivel nagyobb, mint a D4 egyébként, igen.
In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding the Summon Rower skill. Summon your friendly rower to aid you in combat as a minion. You can also mount your rower in combat at any time, allowing you to move at full speed, even while shooting arrows or throwing spears. Be wary though, if you take too much damage while riding your mount, you can be knocked off and get overwhelmed. It's worth keeping an eye on your stagger bar, as falling off the mount can mean almost certain death. On the topic of new ways to enhance your character, let's talk about support gems. Support gems are used to modify your skill gems in meaningful and interesting ways. Currently, we feel that a lot of builds have insufficient options here. To alleviate this, we're adding over 100 new support gems.
Kapunk valami executioner finisher, ez nem tudom mi egyébként.
Turning the damage over time you would have done into explosive vile crystals.
Mindig nem érzékeli
Alignment is a
engem.
support gem for bow attacks, which can reward skilled players with good positional skills. Caltrops will allow you to litter the battlefield with hazards, slowing your foes as you
jó van, srácok, mennek a droppok egyébként. Aki Twitchen néz, az kap droppot, ha 2 órát itt vagyunk a Path of Exile 2 alatt. Kapjátok a droppot. Frissítsetek rá. Frissítsetek majd rá.
Profanity. Retaliate. Syzygy. Yep, that's a real word. And many more.
Oké, mennek a droppok
Now we've
nálam
talked
is.
about a new class, new ascendancy classes, new skills, and new support gems. But let's not forget about the core of a true action RPG, the items. To start with, let's talk about uniques. We're adding over 100 new unique items. This time we've made sure to add uniques with a focus on mid and endgame tiers to make sure there are more exciting items to find for higher level characters. Let's look at some examples. Embrace your inner devil with Chernobog's Pillar. It grants you a large amount of fire damage based on your block chance. The Coming Calamity allows you to become a true master of the elements, granting you all 3 elemental herald skills without costing any spirit. At the same time, it neutralizes enemy resistances.
Azt látod? 37% elemental resistance és a level 19-es heraldokat megkapott spirit felhasználás nélkül a zsír. A zsír az a zöld.
Now we could go through these all day, but we'll leave most of them for you to discover. Suffice to say though, we want there to be way more cool things to find. Over time, our goal is to add a unique to every single base item type at a minimum, so that you can chance any base in the game. Now, given that we have the Huntress, we have a set of unique spears from early game all the way through the end game as well. One example is Scyther's Spear, which combines bleed and fire in a powerful way. It allows your ignites to be aggravated, dealing substantially more damage. We're also introducing a suite of unique bucklers with some interesting parry mechanics. Calgyra's Arc, for example, allows you to parry projectiles from any distance. And we're also adding our first unique charms. Bayra's Anguish will not only protect you from ignite, but will also
jó hangerő egyébként, srácok. Remélem jó.
In sum, there's just a ton of new uniques to find.
Úgy látom, hogy jó. Oké. Munka nélkül is OP, hát az ebbe igazad van. Sose volt ilyen jó. Mi újság, Bugi, mostanában keveset vagy itt. De tisztán el vagyok szomorodva, hogy nem is vagy itt, és nem beszélgetsz vele.
Runes add commonly available mods, But since they only have one tier, flat damage mods tend to get outclassed by endgame. So we've changed runes to have multiple tiers, allowing you to get higher tier mods than
Micsoda?
before.
Figyeld már,
Our
tírek
plan is to
lesznek a
significantly
runáknál.
expand the number of more specialized mods for
Hoppá.
crafting using socketables as we add new content over time. And the first new set of those comes from what we're talking
Nem
about
kellenek a
next.
kifogások.
In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding Asmarian wisps, which can be found throughout both the campaign and the endgame. The Asmari spirit has made itself present in Rayclast, and it appears to be trying to warn, or maybe prepare us for the coming darkness. You will first encounter a manifestation of it in the Grellwood in Act 1, where you'll meet Delwyn, an Asmari hunter who is trying to find out what exactly is causing the spirit to behave this way. As you approach the wisp, it will flee, leading you past monsters. Any monsters it comes into contact with are infused by it, making them more powerful. Each spirit is associated with a specific revered animal within Asmari culture. This one is a wisp of the Great Bear, and grants enemies
Ez
extra
nem olyan,
life
mint a
and
Spirit
stuff.
Born
The
szerintem.
wisp moves faster the closer you are.
Vagy olyan?
And as you move
Nem
away,
tudom,
they
nekem
slow
nem
down to
olyannak
wait.
tűnik egyelőre. Vagy lehet, hogy
But
én
if you get too
lemaradtam
far away
valamiről.
for too long, they'll dissipate and return to the woods. As you continue to chase the wisp, it will find and possess a rare or unique monster, granting it a new
Ja,
powerful
egyébként
ability.
rohadt jól néz ki.
Because this was a wisp of the Great
Ezzel
Bear,
egyetértek.
this monster now also has increased life and stun. But on top of that, it will periodically summon a large spectral bear that slams with wild fury.
De hát a
If you're able to
druidot
defeat this foe,
akartam.
you will be rewarded. For each monster that was infused
Ez
and
nekem
killed
inkább,
along the way,
ezt tudod
the
milyen, mint
rewards
a
will be increased.
D2-ben az Amazon,
Each
a
wisp has
Javelin-es
its own
Amazon.
mechanics. The wisp of the Winter Owl is a primal wisp that causes enemies to deal extra cold damage, gain energy
Az
shield,
igen.
and release wind vortices on death. When infusing a monster, they will call down large tornadoes to protect their host.
Az a baj ezekkel, baszki, hogy most mutatja ezt a Warrior-os cuccot is, hogy ez egy lassú gameplay, ez nem jó egy JRPG-be, baszki, vagy nem tudom, hogy milyen lesz ez majd toppon, de... Meg hát itt is, hát...
If you're lucky, you may even find
Nem
sacred
tudom.
wisps that can do some pretty crazy things to the
Ja,
monsters
ennek
they
is vannak
infuse.
ilyen spirit animáljai?
Like the wisp of the cunning fox, which turns normal monsters
Ja,
into
semmi,
magics,
tehát az endgame-ben ezek
Magic
milyen
monsters into
szart
rares.
érnek, ezek
and
semmit.
rare monsters into actual bosses.
Na így fejlődés közben fun ilyeneket nyomni, de ugye
As
egyébként...
Marian wisps can drop a new set of socketable items
Hop,
that allow you to craft
hop.
a wide range of interesting new mods onto your items.
Ó, figyeld!
Each one may only be used on a specific item slot. As mentioned, the Asmarian wisps can be encountered throughout the game, but there's also a new endgame map called the Asmari Ranges, a
Új
mountain
endgame
village
map
where
is
the
lesz,
Asmari
meg
once
azok az új
lived, now
talizmánok.
overrun with corrupt monsters. This map always has multiple Asmarian wisps in it, and familiar, yet not
Csak
quite the
milyen
same
lesz a
boss.
layoutja ennek a mapnek, az a kérdés.
Asmarian wisps can also be further modified by the endgame atlas tree as well, and by tablets.
Ez valami új izé, figyeld már, milyen?
But
Izé,
I'm not going to be the one talking about those things.
változik az
In
atlasz
order
is.
to cover all the new content in in-game, I'm going to hand things over to Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of
Mount.
Exile 2.
Mount
There's
most
a ton
sincs.
to talk about with the endgame today,
Vagy
so
van?
let's dig right
Nincs
in.
Mount.
Path of Exile 2's early access began with a brand new endgame, and it was clear that it needed a lot of work. After absorbing your feedback, we're ready to make some epic changes.
Na, epic change-ek
The
jönnek
first thing
az
is, we
endgame-be,
just
figyeld.
need a lot more content. In Dawn of the Hunt, we have made sure to focus on increasing the sheer number of interesting and different encounters you will randomly stumble into as you explore the endgame. And the second goal is to smoothen the progression through maps and reduce the amount of annoying busy work. To start with, let's talk about the new interesting stuff to find. Well, the most obvious thing to add are new maps. As
New
well as
map.
the Asmari Ranges that Jonathan mentioned earlier, Dawn of the Hunt also contains 7 other new maps,
Hoppá!
all with their own
7
custom
új map
encounters.
lesz.
Let's start with this one.
The Feral Megaliths map starts off in the wild Ezomite forests.
Ja, hát ez...
As you progress through the forest, you will find mysterious rune-carved stones that, when touched, surge with energy. After activating all
Tényleg
the
itt a
stones, you can
Mount,
find a
bazd meg.
grand henge,
What?
where all the energy is coalescing. You can then start an encounter. The area darkens, a storm moves in, and a concentration of energy summons a dangerous boss. You must
Mi a
fight and
fel ez a
defeat the
Mount?
boss
De
to
ez
get
csak
its
ennek
rewards.
a... Vagy ez mi?
Once you
Ez
have
mindegyik
defeated it,
karakternek
summon
lesz
another.
Mountja?
And another, and another, and another. You have 10 total waves of boss fights which get incrementally more difficult. If you manage to defeat them, you get full boss rewards, but also opportunities to get new runes. These can only be obtained from this map. The fractured lake contains a surreal waterscape with fractured mirror-like objects.
Ó,
As you
figyeld
move
ezt.
around the map, the terrain itself elevates
Ez
from
de
below,
király.
creating the ground you walk on. In this unique map, all the rare monsters are mirrored, so you're always fighting two of the same rare at the same time, which can prove quite difficult. If you manage to overcome that challenge and make it to the end of the map, you'll be presented with a broken mirror, a powerful altar-like object that contains an item within it. The item contained within is a new base type, either an amulet or a ring, that can be crafted to have additional prefixes or suffixes at the cost of the other.
Mi?
The last unique
Aha.
map we'll show today is one based around the essence mechanic. You enter a crystalline cavern, and you will find
Gábor,
a powerful map
küldöm
boss
a...
imprisoned in the center.
Küldöm neked a linket, jó?
It is
Pillanat.
surrounded by many rare monsters, also imprisoned in essences. By
Pillanat.
freeing and defeating the rare monsters, the essence they held will be upgraded to a greater essence and be added to the imprisoned map boss. How brave are you? How many essences will you add to the boss? Overdo it, and you might lose everything. Underdo it, and you might regret it. It's your choice. Speaking of essences, alongside visual improvements, you're now able to apply Varlorbs to corrupt the essences with a range of unpredictable outcomes. It could increase the number of essences,
Arra a linkre
reroll all the essences to the
klikkelve
same type,
tudsz csatlakozni.
or even upgrade the essences to greater essences. What if they're already greater essences? Well, it can upgrade those too. We have 4 new corrupted essences. Essence of Hysteria, Delirium, Horror, and Insanity.
Each corrupted essence has its own interesting combat mechanics. For example, the essence of Insanity causes you to question even your own mind, as monsters split into shadowy clones, and you must locate the real one before a devastating icy explosion freezes everything around it. Each of these has their own crafting outcomes. The essence of Insanity can be applied to a belt. It adds a mod that will ensure the next Varlorb used on the belt will guarantee adding 2 enchantments.
De durva! Látod, hogy a
It's worth noting all the essences
vállorvozásra
in the
kap
unique
valami
map can also
bónusz.
be corrupted too.
De durva.
If you're willing to risk it. It's worth noting we have also added 10 extra Atlas passive points you can earn by completing 5 different
Oh.
unique maps.
10 plusz pont
Now,
jön az
new
Atlaszhoz
maps
is.
are just the beginning. We had a goal where we wanted to make sure you were constantly finding exciting new content, and that it could be lurking around any corner. So, we have added a bunch of new things that you could stumble into in any map you run.
On your travels, you will sometimes encounter rogue exiles. Others like you who have been exiled and are openly hostile. Some are malicious, some are mad, while others are simply fiends for loot. They will challenge you, a fight to the death. They use the same skills available to players, and even the same items. They aren't just dressed up in those items, they're actually using them. It's going to
Wow,
feel like
nice.
a true player versus player situation. Of course, if you are able to slay these exiles, those items will all drop on the ground. So if you
Azt
encounter
hogy
an
jut azzal
exile
a
using a
izével,
powerful or valuable
láttátok?
unique item,
Wow.
which you can see displayed under their life bar, you want to be damn sure you kill them. Because if they kill you and your party, they'll portal out, taking their items with them. Every fight will feel completely different depending on the items they come equipped with. These exiles are much smarter than your regular monster.
Az.
They have capabilities to dodge roll, avoid your abilities with smart pathfinding, smart
Igen,
targeting,
ezek ilyen rogue
and much more
exile-ok, akik így
action-packed
betámadnak téged, és attól függ, hogy milyen cuccba jönnek, attól függ, hogy milyen fightra számíthatsz ellenük.
Unless of course they're wearing uniques like
Érdekes.
Helm's Heart, in which case expect a longer battle.
Ez
There are
érdekes.
12 different rogue exiles you can find,
12
each with their
különféle
own
ilyen
skills
lesz.
and personalities. Some may insult you, while others may admire your honor in combat.
Another encounter you might stumble onto in Dawn of the Hunt are one of 4 new unique strongboxes.
Strongboxes are chests with modifiers.
Unique
When you try to
strongbox
open
is
them,
lesz.
they activate traps and spawn waves of monsters that you must defeat to access the loot. Let's take a look at
Ja.
2 of the new unique boxes
The
that are harder
Butcher,
to
vagy
find
Butcher, ja.
and behave just a little bit differently. The Ogham's Legacy Strongbox has a corpse splayed out in front of the rune-carved
Oda néz.
stone. Upon interacting with the stone, you activate Forbidden Ezomite magic, which revives the monster as a powerful rare. The strongbox comes with a modifier which determines how many times it will revive that rare.
Fallen monster
Each
gains
time
an
you defeat
additional
the
modifier
monstrosity,
each time
the
it
strongbox revives
revives.
it again, adding an extra
That's coming.
modifier to the monster. With each resurrection, it becomes more difficult, but also more rewarding.
Az hogy üt azzal a
This
cuccal?
strongbox is infused
Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta!
with thaumaturgy from ancient Val technology. E-Shell's Torment has a powerful artifact inside,
Additional
and is
unique
guarded by
item.
chaos itself.
Corrupted veteran
Defeating the
Chapman.
monsters will grant you a unique item with a specific corrupted outcome. You'll have to find the other two for yourself to see what they do.
De király.
Now, let's talk about the introduction to the endgame. Upon starting the endgame, Doriani tasks you with cleansing corruption to help restore the land. However, in practice, the quest objective just sent you on a grind to clear 15 maps. We wanted to make the quest to unlock your Atlas passives much more interesting. Now,
Ettől én is kipróbálom.
Doriani is tasking you with a more specific objective. On the Atlas, you will find areas of corruption caused by the beast. In the center of each one, you will find a corrupted nexus, the source of the affliction. In the areas leading up to the nexus, you will notice that corruption spills out from slain enemies and amalgamates into powerful monsters. Corrupted maps existed on the Atlas before, but we've done
Tehát
significant
új
work on
ilyen
improving these
corrupted
monsters.
zónák lesznek,
We've also done a
ahol
full
be
pass
tudsz
on the
majd menni,
modifiers
és
on
akkor
these
ott lesz
maps
valami
to make them
bónusz
more interesting
igazából.
and more rewarding.
Nem lesz
Once you
most
reach
még,
the
azt szerintem
nexus,
majd
you
az
have new
1.0-ba
tasks.
lesz.
Cleanse the source of corruption. When you defeat the last rare in those maps, they will spawn one of 3 terrifying bosses. Amalgamations of corruption itself.
Szerintem ez a
After
mount
defeating that
dolog, ez
boss,
ennél a
Doriani will come
karakternél
and
van
cleanse the
csak.
corruption for good.
Nem?
As the remains of the boss are purged of corruption, it coalesces into raw crystallized power, which you can use to gain points for your Atlas passive skill tree.
Aha.
The upgrade system that allows you to add and enhance content in your maps. We didn't stop there though. When you complete a corrupted nexus, all of the remaining surrounding corrupted maps will become cleansed maps. Cleansed maps also have new monsters, a new boss, and their own set of modifiers and rewards, including finding fracturing orbs by slaying cleansed enemies. These orbs can be used in crafting on a rare item to cause one of its modifiers to become fractured. A fractured modifier is one that cannot be modified by any means. You are able to freely modify the item, ensuring the fractured modifier will never change. If you get the right item with the right mod, it can prove to be a very powerful crafting base indeed. You must now choose. Do you complete all the corrupted maps and then the Nexus? Or maybe you beeline to the Nexus, complete it, and do all the remaining maps cleansed.
Aha.
Both
Tehát,
have
hogyha a
rewards to
Nexus tolod le,
entice you
akkor
and
cleanseld a
challenges to
mapeket
assess.
körülötte, azok megmaradnak.
Let's have a talk
De hogyha
about
előtte
towers.
letoltad a mapokat is, és aztán
One
a
thing we've had
Nexus.
a lot of feedback on is the busy work around running towers and managing your tablets. The first change we've made here is that we have
Hoppá,
reduced the
figyelted?
number of towers drastically. So there are now 1/3 as many as before, but we've made them much more powerful.
Aha, tehát erősebbek lesznek a
To
tornyok,
start
de
with,
egyharmad annyi
tablets
lesz,
now
mint eddig
inherently add
volt.
twice as many mechanics.
Azt
But that's
figyeld.
not all. Running higher tier maps and towers now increases the number of mechanics applied by tablets. By tier 15, the bonus is double,
Az
allowing
igen.
a single tablet to now add 4 times
Oda
as many
néz.
mechanics as before. So, we're running far fewer towers,
Wow,
dealing with fewer
28 maps
tablets,
range contain
and affecting
breaches.
even more maps than before. But because there are fewer towers overlapping with each other, you won't get as many opportunities to stack different tablets.
Azt
In
a...
order to solve this, we've made it so that each tower can consume
Nem
up to 3
tudom.
tablets at once.
Hogy Archer volt-e.
You always get 1 slot on completing the
Right.
tower, but if you can complete a tower with more mods on the waystone, you can unlock a second or third slot.
Ott vagy állokolni lehet
Overall,
ezeket a
this allows
slotokat
for even
rajta.
more juicing from towers, while drastically reducing the amount of busy work you have to do. On top of that, towers are much more interesting maps because they can now spawn with all mechanics, including bosses.
Each tower map has a new boss. Let's take a look at a couple here.
The boss fight of the Alpine
Oh,
Ridge
és
map has
bossok is
2
lesznek.
powerful witches contesting for territory.
Tower mapeken. Ez
One
az,
witch has an
király.
affinity for ice, the other fire. Who will win? Hopefully neither. The boss of the Sinking Spire map is a remnant of the Val that has been charged with lightning.
Az
It
igen.
uses a full suite of lightning abilities. But be careful. If any of them hit the surrounding constructs, they will power up.
Another thing that we've seen a lot of feedback about is sustaining waystones. As we looked into it, we realized that the people who couldn't sustain waystones were dying a lot. A lot more than we had expected. And that made us realize something. During the campaign, the expectation is that you can die multiple times in order to learn how to overcome challenges.
Ez megdögli.
You are
Ez
able to
hülye.
learn how the monsters behave, adapt to their skills, and eventually overcome them. But as soon as you get to the endgame, you are effectively no longer allowed to die if you want to sustain waystones. By the time you are getting towards the end of endgame, we want you to have to be careful not to die. But it certainly shouldn't be that we have such a sudden shift as you run your first maps.
The first change we're making is you can now respawn and return to a map if you die. Continuing from where you left off.
Mi? Hogy újra lehet menni
When you
majd?
start the endgame,
What?
you get up to 6 total attempts
De
per
mi?
map.
Mi? Ez most lemaradtam teljesen most.
As you add more modifiers to a waystone, the number of respawns goes down.
Ja, hogy
This
vannak a
means that
number
as
of
you get to the point
respawns.
that you're running
Aha,
every waystone as a
aha.
rare, you will have to be more careful.
De jó, végre. Nem csak egyszer, nem mindig az lesz, hogy meghalsz, az
In
viszlát.
parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times.
Aha.
But we still think it's important that you can kill a boss in one go.
De jó. Ez
In
mondjuk
order to
jó.
allow that to happen, we've made a change so that once you start the boss fight, it changes over to the same respawning system we use for pinnacle bosses. This means that the map owner can choose to respawn everyone at the same time. Another complaint we've seen a lot of is players not wanting to do the pinnacle content because of the
Yeah, Zombie
experience penalty
Archer.
from dying. A change we've made here is that all pinnacle content now no longer grants experience, but also no longer removes experience on death either.
Hoppá.
Dawn of the Hunt also brings the first batch of Twilight Order reliquary keys from the early access supporter packs. These keys contain items selected by our supporters. They can contain any unique item found in Path of Exile 2. If the selected item is a
Zöld
pinnacle
volt.
boss drop, then only special keys dropped by this content will be able to provide these items. For example, Hand of Wisdom in action can only come from a key dropped by Zesht. We're also making a change that allows pinnacle boss uniques to drop at any difficulty. Rarer uniques will be rarer at lower difficulties, but still possible to find. This applies to the drop chances for the reliquary keys from this
Oh.
content as well.
Alacsonyabb szinten is
We
meg lehet
spoke
őket
about towers
találni,
and
de
tablets earlier, but we have
kevesebb
also
esélyed
added a
lesz.
suite of unique tablets.
Unique
Each of
tabletek
these
is
adds
lesznek.
crazy interactions to the maps
Wow.
influenced by it.
Ó, azért beletettek rengeteg
For
dolgot,
example,
srácok.
this unique tablet allows you to run any map in a tower's radius without requiring connections, which can be quite useful for
kemény.
jumping gaps and traveling around your atlas.
Az kemény.
And this tablet causes all runic monsters spawned during expedition encounters to be duplicated, and weakens all expedition monsters that emerge from the ground. The Atlas tree has also been expanded, and you can find many of the new mechanics there.
Aha,
And improvements to
kibővítették
existing
az
ones too.
Atlaszt is. Fú, tényleg egy csomó mindennek
Now,
kibővítették.
through this live stream, we have mentioned quite a few new crafting options that we've added. New runes, corrupted essences, fractured mods, and jewelry crafting bases. But we did have just one more crafting system to talk about. Recombination. Expedition was the only in-game mechanic that was lacking a crafting system, so that needed to change.
Ilyen volt a izébe
Recombination
is,
is a
nem?
mechanic that might be familiar to some players. It allows you to merge two items together, hoping to get the best elements of each on a single new item. This new crafting bench will be unlocked as you complete your first expedition. And
Ilyen volt az
requires
egybe is
artifacts
valami,
found
nem?
during
Ez a
expeditions
combine.
to fuel it. The rarer the mods on the item you are combining, the more expensive the cost.
That wraps up all the major in-game changes we're talking about today. With all the system changes and new content, we can't wait to get in there, start blasting maps, and obliterating monsters. There is one more thing we wanted to clarify before we move on, which is that all the content we've talked about today will be made available in the existing early access leagues, so you can play your existing characters. However, there will be new leagues made for those who wish to start in a fresh economy. It is recommended to start over and get the full new experience in the Dawn of the Hunt leagues. For all our existing early access players, we're really looking forward to joining you playing in this new update. For those who don't already have access and are interested in playing Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt, you are able to at any time purchase an early access supporter pack at www.pathofexile2.com. Additionally, the Paladin and Penance supporter packs are now available to purchase in Path of Exile 2 and contain 6 microtransactions each and the full pack's face value in points. All the microtransactions contained within these packs
Na jó, az a mikrotranszakció, hogy gyors csinálok egy kávét, de közben hallgatom én is, csak nem tudom, mikrotranszakciót kevésbé érdekel. De közben jövök mindjárt, csak hallgatom én is.
With release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. On release weekend, we expect to launch the new mystery box and many new microtransactions, including Path of Exile 2's first alternate skill effects. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to playing the Huntress, trying new builds, and exploring the new endgame next week. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready.
Good morning, Exiles, and welcome to the Q&A portion of today after a very exciting reveal with lots and lots in it, exceeding my expectations, particularly in crafting.
What's your hawk?
We're joined here by Jonathan and Mark to talk about all that we've seen today and more in the future of Path of Exile 2. And,
felhangosítottam és...
Yes, that's right, that's right.
Ez a rohadt hak.
We actually last night
Hello?
had a bit of a design session
Ez jó hak.
realized that we weren't actually fully happy with the way that recombination worked. So we actually
Nálatok is sokkal halkabb lett, basszus. Hát nem tudom, maxon van, srácok. Nem tudom, ennél nem tudom maxabbra venni.
Give a bit more control to the player over how recombination works. And we also kind of weren't really happy about the fact that recombinations is something that like kind of matters a lot for really, really ultra players. But it wasn't
Hát ez érdekes.
mattering a lot for like the people who effectively got access to the feature.
Hát alig hallom, baszki. Nálatok is így halkabb lett, aki nézi, nem csak nálam egyébként. Nem hallok szart se.
So if you pick just like one from one and one from the other, the chance is much higher. But if you pick if you pick 6 mods, it'll become practically impossible. So effectively, like the more you're wanting to design the item, the less of a chance of actually having success. So that means that if you just want to get like a mod, if you want to get an item with like, okay, these 2 mods that I found off the ground, that's relatively easy. If you want to get an item which has all of them, then very hard. So we think that's a much better design because it means you can kind of use the recombinators actually become something that you can use even from a relatively from the first point you get them, but there's still this kind of end game, like like for perfect stuff, you might still be able to do it with more. It is kind of balanced though, so that like if you pick literally all 6, then it's going to be like incredibly low to the point of like don't even try that. But like 4 mods might be a good thing to sort of be striving for, that kind of thing, and then exalt the other 2, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the new design of that. So hopefully that'll be in by the time 0-2 comes out. We're gonna we've kind of got a plan for doing that. But yeah, like I think it's a much better design than what we had before for recombinators.
If it's not there for O2O, it'll be as
very
soon as it can afterwards.
Very
But
soon.
yeah, spur of the moment, night before the live stream design sessions. But
Been a few of those.
increased player agency and visibility into the success result is just a win. And honestly, it took way too long to get to the point of us actually going, oh, this is just straight up better to have observability into that and the freedom of choice. So.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Recombination
Na,
definitely felt
felhúzták a hangerőt.
both really high end in terms of the crafting that it was intended for, but also just even understanding it. This seems much more intuitive because
You just take what you
selecting
want.
the mods you want.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So it does sound like it's a little bit of a nerf for the very high end of crafting.
It might end up being, but I'm not like it sort of depends on how the numbers come out. Like because we only just designed this, we need to still work out.
És mit szóltok ehhez a sok mindenhez, srácok?
But I mean, look, we have to make sure. Obviously, whenever we're designing any
Hogy
project,
tetszenek a
we have to
változtatások?
be really sure that we're not like screwing over finding stuff on the ground.
Közben próbálom figyelni, miről
We have to
beszélnek.
sort of have that balance, and that's so that kind of informs everything we do with crafting usually.
One difference here, though, of course, is if the success chance fails, both
item's just
both
deleted,
items
yeah.
are destroyed as opposed to always keeping one.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So it's basically
Whether or
percent
not
chance for success, and if it fails, item's gone. So
What,
yeah.
Roughly, what do you think you try to pitch at just choosing 2 mods out? Like,
It depends on what mods you're selecting, but I'm kind of thinking kind of like 35%-ish kind of thing for like 2 normal mods, that kind of thing.
them both
Like
to
for them
go
both,
over?
yeah, for them both. For if you pick 2,
Yeah.
and then but we'll
it
see.
kind of depends. Again,
It kind of depends. We'll see how we have to do
higher
some
tier
mathing.
mods are rare, and
Yeah, exactly. So it sort of
it
depends on the
also
situation.
the other thing is it's going to now have a fixed cost, so it's not gonna
Yeah.
you know.
And the idea is
go
like,
up based on
yeah, and the idea is like doing a single expedition should be enough to do a recombination. So you're going to be doing them like relatively often as you're doing expeditions.
So is the part of Expedition where you get to craft with the NPCs?
És az Expedition-nél lehet ezt a recombine csinálni?
Yeah, I mean you've still got that whole mechanic, and like so it's competing for the artifacts.
Yeah.
Between recombination versus buying things from that other way.
So is there some buffs intended for that then to make it more competitive?
Not
with-
yet. It definitely needs some love in the future, but not at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like the systems can kind of go hand in hand, where one is giving you items that you can then potentially recombinate.
That is also true. You can use the ingredients of one in the other, or the outcome of one as an ingredient in another. Yeah.
Cool. We'll talk more about crafting a little bit later on for sure, because there was a lot announced there, which I'm quite excited about. Definitely exceeded my predictions for what you'd be adding in terms of crafting. But firstly, though, just a quick clarification on the league. So there's not going to be a wipe for the new players joining us. If you
Tehát
were playing a
konkrétan ez
character,
most
you
egy
still
liga
keep
lesz,
playing on a character.
ezek
But
szerint.
a lot of long-term Path of Exile players know the importance of playing on a fresh start, and that's also really important for you guys as well,
For
right?
sure, yeah. I mean, basically, if we don't have like any character that's come from before, you're just not gonna like, because the balance is so different and because so many things have changed. There's like no point in even listening to feedback for someone who's playing in the old league. Like, it really has to be that you're doing the fresh start, and we're sort of seeing how things go in the new economy. So like, we were really sort of, it was kind of an interesting decision about whether or not we should make it so that all the content is exclusive, or rather like what amount of content would be exclusive to the league versus not. And the issue that we had is that so I mean, like, a league means something in Path of Exile. In order for something to rise to the level of a league, it needs like a certain amount of features. And the original thing we were thinking about doing that way would be the Asmerian Wisps, but there wasn't quite like the kind of like meta mechanics and stuff with that. So like, we didn't quite rise to the level of feeling like it deserved to be a challenge league. And at the same time, we've also got a lot of new players playing Path of Exile 2 who never played Path of Exile before. So we're a little bit like, we kind of were deciding like, okay, should we should we make them exclusive or not? We sort of decided, you know what, for this one we're not going to. And then what we'll probably try and do is for the next league that we do, we'll actually make it a proper challenge league with like its own exclusive mechanic and so on. But yeah, it's a little bit funny because like in early access is a bit of a different situation with different, and so yeah, we'll sort of see how this goes anyway. But certainly I would encourage everyone just like start again on a new character. I think, you'll have a much better time because, obviously if there's structural changes to the passive tree. It's like if you log in with your old character, you're going to have like, your tree's going to get reset. You have to do stuff. There's things like that are going to happen that mean that, and also just balance changes, right? Like huge numbers of them. So you're going to have a better time playing from the start.
Fú, engem
And speaking of the Huntress then, so we saw initial Huntress quite some time ago now and had some hands-on time with it and things, but I certainly, having played that before and played it now recently, the Huntress has changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
So what was the, how hard was it to get it ready for release? What was kind of the key there?
I mean, it's funny because class design is one of those things where every time you add something, it can make you reevaluate everything else, which is why it's so hard to predict like how long a class will take. So like, it changed a lot since the last time we had we were showing Huntress. And honestly, like, it's like, while there are some skills that you will still see, like, it just plays completely different. And I mean, whenever we're looking at like how we're going to design something like this, it really comes down to like, what is the special about the character class? Like, how can we double down on that to make sure it feels different? So with the Huntress, you've obviously got spears as a base type. The key difference between a spear and any other weapon type is that you can both use them at melee and you can also use them at range. You can throw them. And so because of that,
szóval bejön ez a spearezés a Huntress-szel,
incentivize everything possible so that you use both of those things.
és használhatod millibe is, meg range-be is, ez az elképzelés.
that generally speaking, the balance can often be such that you only really want to do one thing and do that one thing
Nyilván
well. So trying to
range-ed a
incentivize
jobb.
the kind of ranged and melee.
Minden ranged karakter most jelenleg jobb a
And
Path
I mean,
of
the way we
Exile
do it effectively is
2-ben
try to make sure
szerintem.
that like there are combo chains where a ranged thing can combo with something that's melee, and a melee thing can combo with something that's ranged, and then also give you good abilities to move between the two states. And so that kind of means that you end up with a very like agile character, like you're constantly moving like backwards and forwards and kind of moving around. And I would say that like given that it's the Dex character, that it's good that it feels that way, that it feels the most agile of all of the melee character classes.
Ja, hát hogyha meg liga lesz, akkor nyilván új karit
but
indítunk.
I mean, look, there are, in terms of changes, I mean, look, there are just changes all the time. Like the frenzy charge thing was like relatively late in development. Like there's like quite a lot of things going on that just meant that the field kept on evolving. And another big one, of course, was parry, which I honestly was very skeptical of working. And Mark, Mark was the one who saved it. Honestly, like I was like, you know what? There was like 3 times I think where I was like, you know what? I don't think it's gonna work. And then you were like, okay, I think we're gonna save this.
I was like, give me a week.
Yeah, exactly. And it works completely differently for most games, because in most games, obviously, with parrying, the way that works is that you have to time the push the block button at exactly the right time. But that's just something that just wouldn't work in our combat system, because you're often packs of monsters. It's just like you don't really have the ability to read combat in that way in our game. And at the same time, we need to make something where there's going to be like, if a single monster in a pack hits you, you need to be able to respond to that with something that's going to, you need to be able to respond in a way where you don't just then immediately get hit by a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
So having it so that the parry, like it always parries, but it's then taking advantage of what the parry does to the monster by following up with something that's going to give you like, an explosion or something like that to kind of deal with the pack. That's something that sort of allows that counter gameplay to work in our game. So you've kind of got 2 primary parry follow-ups. You've got the frenzy charge one, which dashes back, which means that, you
tehát ugye arról beszél, hogy
and then you've also got the one that
gondolkoztak ilyen újfajta combat mechanikákon, és ez a parry follow-upok jönnek, amik, hogyha parryzel valami bejövő atakot, akkor ugye 2 módon reagálhat rá a karaktered, miután parryztél, és akkor ebből lesz, hogy freezeli, meg majd felrobbantja, vagy miket mondott itt, ami érdekes dolog lehet egyébként. Ez a follow-up, ugye a parryt követő valamilyen reakciója a karakterednek.
Sniper's Mark, and there's a skill that does give you a guaranteed crit, so that's a potential option as well. Like you've got a few different ways to generate them.
Because parry guarantees a light stun.
Yeah.
You always get that small window to actually engage or do a thing before before you're under danger again.
And I'll tell you this, like, I am one of those players who never parry, right? In any game ever, because I can never do it. It's always just so frustrating. So I was very skeptical of that, but it feels really good. You've both managed to make it something that's easy to do, because you can just hold the button down and parry at any time. There's no skill involved in that. But at the same time, you've incentivized making it so that you do want to still try and time it as best you can personally. How have you done that? How have you made it so that like you actually still want to kind of play it skillfully?
Nem tudom, hogy az RPG-be ez kell egyébként.
Parry button is when you're not attacking, right? So you still want to kind of minimize the window.
Tehát ugye, hogy konkrétan tudsz majd parryzni, te tudsz parryzni, ez nem egy automatikus dolog lesz.
Once you do successfully parry, it's very obvious, you get the sound, you get the token on the monster, it's very chunky.
Nem tudom, hogy ez például, ez lassítja a gameplayt. Tehát, hogy
And honestly, one of the funny things about it is that
nem tudom, te mit gondoltok erről? Engem ez most nem biztos, hogy annyira tetszik egyébként. A dodge az úgy rendben van, csak ez már nagyon Elden Ring-es. Mert ugye az Elden Ringben van ez a parry dolog.
See if it makes it into 0-2-0. I was playing around with it last night.
This was 8 p.m. last night.
Yeah, 8 p.m. last night, exactly. I was
messing with this.
Yeah, messing around with it. And I won't talk too much about how that's going to work, but effectively we want to make shields, the shields better as well, and kind of build something into those to make them more interesting.
És itt furcsának találom, hogy ilyesmiket behoznak a játékba egyébként.
Design space idea of being able to do a bit more with it.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
that feed into other skills and things like that as well.
100%.
There's a lot of room there to play with.
Yeah.
So we talked about Huntress being very very combo heavy, and she has the deepest combo chains out of anyone so far, even exceeding.
Kombó
like,
heavy
things
lesz
you
a
can do with
Huntress,
one.
tehát ilyen kombók
You've
lesznek
got 3-4
benne, amit
different
gondolom
skills
azok
that you
fogják
can
erősíteni.
start to synergize together.
Mint mondjuk a
So
rugó
how
a
do
WoW-ba,
you
vagy
balance? How do
ilyesmi.
you make that fun? Firstly, like rather than like onerous, for example.
Well, I mean, I guess there's a few things. Like one of them is it just has to be very readable and understandable when, like, like what you can do and when you can do it. And I think the other thing that's really to our advantage here is reusing skills in multiple ways, so you can make a deeper combo chain without requiring you to be using as many skills in order to do it. So the way that Whirling Slash and Tornadoes interact with ground effects and kind of like all that stuff sort of means that, you're using Whirling Slash multiple times as part of the same combo chain. And that's an idea, I think, that I'd like to try and explore more, because I think that it is a cool way to kind of extend the combo chain, as I said, without sort of getting too many things involved, and that makes it a lot cooler. So I'll think a bit more about, how we can apply that to other classes and other skills, but it's worked out really well here.
Yeah, it's a bit of like a loose.
Ja, úgyhogy összekombozza a skilleket, és akkor többféle módon használhatja, vagy valami ilyesmiről beszél egyébként.
Like ground effects. You're able to combo with anything that creates a ground effect. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Like I added shocked ground to the backflip skill, or I got a companion pet that had a shocked ground aura.
Nice.
As like, so that was just there, and that was available all the time.
I mean, it's funny as well because it also works on just enemy ground effects, and so sometimes you can just get a damage boost because the rare just happened to be dropping ground fire or something. So that's kind of fun. But it's been it's just a lot of fun to play. The first time I ran into that was actually in the graveyard, where there's these like chests that like pop open with fire, and like I was using tornadoes, and then one of them just randomly turned into a fire tornado, and I'm like, oh, what happened there? Oh, yeah, sweet. It was just like a really cool moment where it just sort of interacted with the environment, which was really fun.
It always feels like you're getting.
Aha, tehát nem csak a sajátoddal, hanem a környezettel is reagálni fog. Tehát most, hogy azt mondja, hogy kinyitotta a chestet, amiből kijött egy tűz, és akkor tolt egy tornádot, ami fire tornádóvá változott. Az király egyébként. Hát kíváncsi vagyok, de szerintem pont azok hiányoznak, azok a buildek, amiben lehet zúzni, mint az állat, és azt mondom, hogy ezek így reagálnak erre, oké, rendben, meg jó pofa, de nem ettől lesz az ARPG igazán jó.
Like, I think it's the case where some of the combo gameplay kind of degenerates
Legalábbis nem tudom nektek mi a véleményetek, de...
I want to make sure it still feels rewarded. And so we were sort of doing various checks, recently about, like as a random example, right? Like, so on the mercenary, we found that doing, but when you get to endgame, doing armor break, what's it called? The armor piercing that causes armor break, followed with high velocity rounds, is just worse than just using high velocity rounds. And that's like really bad, right? Like we have to make sure that we're improving that stuff. So it's like sometimes you just get these things where like the balance by endgame kind of degenerates in a way that that doesn't support the combo anymore. And so we have to make sure that when we're looking at buffing things, that we're like making sure that when we're doing it, it's to support the fact that using more things is actually a good thing. We're really trying to make sure that we're bringing some of that, improving some of that stuff as well as we're making the balance changes.
So do you have like a baseline there of where like the really simplest build should be, the build that just bonks? Like,
I mean, you mean in terms of damage or in terms of like what it does? I mean, we always want you to be able to build that way. But
players have to do a combo.
I mean,
like, for people who don't want
ultimately
to,
you never have to, right? But it sort of what it means is that you are sacrificing something. And look, the ideal situation is that like you don't feel like you have to do combos. You feel like you want to do combos, right? Like, because you feel rewarded for them. It's like should feel like
mondja, hogy nem azt akarja, hogy azt érezzük, hogy kell használni, hanem hogy szeretnél használni kombókat, és hogy megcsinálják úgy, hogy ezeket szeretd majd használni, vagy akart használni igazából.
It does require a lot of discipline, and it means that a lot of skills like end up on the cutting room floor because you try them out and then you realize, well, this is in the game and that's the only thing I'm ever going to do. So you got to be really careful about that stuff.
Certainly playing the Huntress now makes me go back and look at the other classes and be like, we need to up that the level there, and we missed the mark a little bit now because this is better. And who's to say the next class won't even be better and make us question even this? But
but that's the way it is with class design.
That's what he says when we like literally when you make a new class, you question everything. He's not understating the level of questioning everything.
Yeah, do you see like going back to the monk at some point and looking for more like opportunities to link skills together with?
I mean, we haven't got to the full skill set for any class yet already, and we need to add more pieces for a lot.
I think there's at least 4 skills that were designed and then aren't in the monk currently.
Range are the same. There was extra poison skills. It was intended to be more chaos dots. There's all kinds of stuff. We have to obviously at some point fill all of that in. Hard to say when, but we're going to try and incrementally get it, like much like how Ray Spectre and I mean the mount works with the Huntress, but we were like, let's give something for the Ranger this time. Let's give something for the Summoners out there this time, and so we're just going to keep filling in those gaps over time.
Attól félek, hogy megint az, vagy behoznak egy csomó minden újdonságot, ilyen skillek, meg kombózás, meg minden szírszar. Megint az lesz, hogy mindenki ugyanazokat fogja, tehát lesz egy baszó build, és senki nem fog más csinálni.
And it will never end.
That's it. So with the parry came the kind of looking at the player getting stunned, in particular player heavy stun. So it's always hard to tell players like, hey, we're going to do something to you and it's going to be a bad thing. You're not going to like this.
Well, the funny thing,
let's talk about why.
there's a few things like that actually, because so I mean, for a start, like we needed the downside of parry to be, you know, like that. Yeah, you get stunned out of it. But then when we're looking at how long, like we're like, okay, right now, even, and it's true with shield block as well, by the way. It's like if you get stunned out of that, the amount of time that you get stunned out for is actually not even enough time for most bosses to do a follow-up attack on you. And it's like, well, where's the downside if it doesn't even have enough time? So we did have to extend that out a little bit, and it makes you a little bit more careful. But in just to warn people, right, there's a few other things, like we lowered, what's it called? The I can't remember the name of that thing now. The thing that makes you more easy to be elemental statuses apply to you. Ailment threshold. That's right, ailment threshold. Yeah. So we lowered ailment threshold to actually make it so the player has those mechanics happen more to them, right? Because like right now through campaign, like you barely get frozen or burning or shocked, really, to be honest. Yeah. So there's stuff like that we've had to do to kind of make sure that you know, that because if you don't have that stuff actually happen to you, then there's no point in mitigating it. And it's like, you know, things like charms were like not very useful because, you know, those mechanics weren't happening to you. There's stuff like that, right? The downsides do actually matter in order to make it so that, you know, that you then, you know, there's other things you can do to sort of bypass those downsides. So yeah, that's kind of one of those things that, you know, we just have to make sure is there.
I did always find it a little bit strange that like I was able to count the number of times I was frozen in the campaign on one finger.
For sure. For sure. But
it's always by those vile ghosts.
Yes.
So expect a little bit more, like a little bit more danger from the stun. I definitely died a couple times to getting heavy stunned.
Yeah, it can happen.
So that's mostly occurring if you're like doing bad blocking or parrying. But can it also occur just from like taking a really big hit or something?
Nope. At least we've discussed that. We've gone through a whole bunch of different like. Should certain boss abilities heavy stun you, and if you speak into enough stun threshold, it like demotes it to a light stun, and if that, you know, there's all kinds of multi-hour discussions we've had, and we haven't really come to anything conclusive there. But it's only from mount, raise shield, and parry, and of which, you know, at least for all of them, you can see your stagger bar filling up. It's worth noting things like evasion apply to. So when you're parrying, we turn off your evasion from taking damage because the block does, right? And otherwise you'd be like, I'm going to parry it. Oh, I evaded it. It didn't parry. Yeah. But you can evade the stagger build-up. So you don't take the damage anyway, just before anyone misunderstands that.
The evasion still works.
Yeah.
So high evasion will mean you can parry for longer. There's a bunch of parry stuff on the tree, including damage affecting the debuff, the duration of the debuff, so you get to benefit for it longer. Reducing stagger is all over the place for both mount and so in the dex section of the tree.
Hát ez kicsit fura, hogy
so yeah, you can mitigate. I mean,
így próbálják megközelíteni a damage mitigációt, hogy ugye kibír. Ugye eddig is volt ez a stun threshold, ugye erről beszélgetnek, ez a heavy stun kapsz, meg light stun, meg stb. Ami rohadt idegesítő, hogyha nincs stun thresholdod elég, és már pedig nincs. Tehát, hogy rohadt idegesítő, és akkor most jön ez a parry, nem tudom.
When it's contentious, people would bring it up and would change it, right? Sure. So like, if it's on the line, it's meant to be.
Mit gondoltok erről?
If it isn't clear, and there was no way with hundreds of monsters and many dozens of bosses that we weren't going to miss something.
Én nem állni akarok a karakteremmel, érted, és dodge-olni, meg parrizni, hanem, mert értem én, persze azért vannak ilyen játékok, csak egy RPG-ben ez kicsit fura.
Because otherwise you're just making a bad build a lot of the time. But I notice Huntress has a bit of everything. She's got bleed,
arra vágyom, mint
she's got physical. The only thing she doesn't have is like chaos.
Attributes-tekkel, hogy menjél és zúzzál, mint az állat.
How do you like promote this like all of this different stuff together? Are you supposed to only kind of be relegated to using 2 or 3 skills, or are these supposed to come together? And how do you manage that?
Well, there's a few things. So one of them is that we provide a lot of combos with the expectation that you'll probably be focusing around like a few specific things rather than necessarily using the whole tree. So like there's that. The other thing as well is just making sure that in the passive tree there's sort of options that go across both. So the Huntress's passive tree has quite a lot of things like extra melee damage if you've done a ranged attack recently, and then it's got things like bonuses against blinded enemies because while you're in a whirling slash there's so it's sort of stuff like that where we're trying to carefully think like, well, how can we come up with something that's interesting and buffs everything that you might want to be doing, that kind of synergizes with the stuff that the Huntress can do. But it is honestly hard because like many categories of things only matter for one thing, part of a combo. So it's just like trying to come up with categories that can somehow span all of them in different ways. And ideally we can achieve that, but yeah, it is pretty hard.
Generally, yeah, you're going to become more niche or more selective because, again, even mixing elemental and bleed is just probably often going to result.
You
in
probably wouldn't do both elemental and bleed. You'd probably choose one or the other.
Yeah.
But that's why we kind of try to make sure that, like, so you've got sort of linkages between them though, right? Because it's like, for example, the thunderous leap detonates the spears that you do from the bleed thing. So it's like kind of like the idea there is to like it changes how that skill then has a use in the combo with the other one. So even if that skill itself isn't doing a lot of damage, it's triggering something that's taking advantage of all the damage bonuses you got for the for your bleed stuff. So that's kind of like the idea, is just to link all that stuff in a bit so that you can use the non like directly synergistic things in a kind of more synergistic way.
Yeah, that's if you didn't see that from the earlier trailer, you spear them with a bunch of spears and then jump on them and explodes them for bleed. Amazing.
Nem tudom, én inkább olyasmit várnék egyébként.
Another way as detonator.
Most itt hallgatom én is, hogy mikről beszélgetnek, de
of course. I mean, there's always systems
az lenne a fasz, hogyha tudnál összehozni egy jó poison buildet, egy jó bleeding buildet, stb. És ezeket én nem nagyon látom, hogy ezek lennének, hanem kb. Tök ugyanabban az irányba megy, hogy vagy lightning, vagy valami felrobban, vagy valami, de hogy nincsenek ezek a... Én nem láttam például ilyen nagyon durva, senkinél ilyen bleeding, meg ilyen buildeket.
Kind of not really. It's a signature weapon, but nothing in the ascendancies prescribes spears.
Exactly. So effectively, we take great pains to make sure that the ascendancies never mention weapon types. That they're always generalized. So, for example, the like infusion mechanic in the Amazon, it just says projectiles. It doesn't say spears, and the reason it does that is so that you could make an Amazon who is a bow user, and that's all fine. So like it's effectively like
open-ended.
It's open-ended, and honestly, like I know that Mark does like. It makes the constraint a lot harder for how to design an ascendancy class when you have to think about it that way, for sure.
Oh, it'd be much easier to just put a bunch of cool spear stuff in there, but now only really... I mean, it was similar to the original PoE1 Saboteur, called out traps and mines, and so if you're a trap and mine character, what are you doing? Well, you could do something else, but no one else is playing that thing, Right. It isn't... it is easier to design. It is certainly less flexible and open as to what people can play in the different combinations and all that. So
how much do you have to consider the different weapons and the skills and how they interact together when you're originally designing them, or is there just literally so many possible combinations you're just like, the players will take care of that for us?
I mean, I think it is relatively impossible to come up with everything, but certainly we have to consider, like, is this going to be broken with anything else in particular? And there just has to be certain rules for things about, like, how easy is it to apply this debuff, how easy it is to consume this debuff. And even then, it's like, we often make mistakes and have issues.
Most arról beszélnek, ugye a skilleket hogy lehet összeegyeztetni, hogy ugye használni tudja minden karakter szinte majdnem minden ilyen skillt, és ugye ezt hogy tudják megoldani. Ezeket, hogy balanszolják, hogy azért mit, hogyan, és hát mondja, hogy ők is beleszaladnak hibákba.
I mean, there's things that we can never honestly understand all the different broken things that could possibly
Igen, ez még fura volt nekem először mindig is a Path of Exile-ban, hogy lehet használni mondjuk egy warriorral egy tök más típusú skillt, amit egy másik karinak találtak ki, vagy nem is tudom, tehát ilyen tök furák
ezek. Obviously, like, the game's still relatively new. We're still making relatively big changes. Over time, the balance, I think, will get to the point where we no longer have these like crazy outliers to the same extent. And it should mean that we get to some sort of relative class parity. By parity, what I mean is like, people playing all the different classes rather than focusing only on a few.
Tehát hogy nem vagy egy ilyen nagyon class specifikusnak
very skewed. Because there's certain broken things.
Bekategorizálva, hanem ugye használsz más skilleket is, tök fura.
It's one of the main
goals and benefits of the early access. Is just
Yeah.
like, let's get the balance of characters right.
Ja, tehát dolgoznak
And-
rajta.
Yeah, this patch release was always going to have 1,000 problems, or probably 10,000 problems, you know? The next one will have half that, the next one half that, and probably eventually it's going to be down to, like, here's only a few things going, you know, out of whack. There's always going to be something, because we add too much content for it to even be controlled. Again, there are too many uniques, too many supports, too many skills, and too many other changes for any amount of people. Like, you're talking about a matter of you'd have to put in, like, thousands and thousands of hours internally to find it, and then you give it to the players. There's so many people, it's going to take literally 5 minutes. So it is. It's very beneficial. And we're lucky in that regard that we get that level of testing and feedback, and on such a mass level, and especially, you know, with things like, you know, Ninja and all of that, and other people being able to see it and discuss it more openly, we're just going to be able
Van
to
már
iterate on it
esetleg
even
erről
faster.
valami
But yeah, every single
patch
patch you're going to
notes,
see a
vagy
pretty
valami?
substantial change
Mikor
in
jön ez?
what's going to happen here. Yeah.
Thanks for making the broken builds. And
Well, 100%. 100%.
I mean, you mentioned support gems. It's like over 100 support gems added just this patch. It's it's already like so many.
7 nap,
and with
22
you doing
óra,
a
aha.
different weapon for each of the 16 classes.
Yeah, I
and
mean, there's going to be a lot
16
by the time we're
weapons.
done.
It
But there kind of has
supports
to be,
all-
right? Because
I know, that's what you made it. You made this system that you need so many supports to support.
You
Because
do.
otherwise, it's not going to work. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
especially with this one support system, it's like, what have you guys done?
Well, I mean, look, this is why we have recommendations, and hopefully we can improve those as well, and continue to get that better. You know, like
There's certainly room for the complexity to get a little bit out of control here. So the recommendeds are going to become more and more important.
Right.
So we need to make sure those are
Április 4-én
very
jön.
much right.
for sure.
You must be looking to players even to find some of those recommendations down the line as well.
In some
like what-
cases,
yeah,
in some cases.
what stuff is popularly getting
But
used.
the thing with the
playstyles?
recommendations though is that they
Dawn
can't
of
really
the Hunt.
take into account what you've already got on the gem. So
Yeah.
the recommendations have to be just sort of generally good, but not really take into account combos. You know, that kind of means they're a bit more simple. Like the recommendations are going to be more simple than what you'd otherwise be doing if you're not following them.
Feels like at some point you're going to need some sort of nested recommendation system. It's like, well, I'm kind of doing bleed stuff, so you go to the sub menu for bleed recommendations.
I'm less certain about that because I kind of don't want to get into the thing of actually telling you what your build should be. Yeah, that's a little bit different there.
Maybe like more sorting methods for the show me all the gems. Oh, because there's a lot that are only in there that are never recommended, right? At this point,
There are, yes,
Yeah.
there are.
it's going to be an interesting challenge you guys have set yourselves to make enough supports there.
Igen, beszélnek ezekről, hogy a csomó
another
skill, meg
thing
support
that
gem,
you
és hogy ugye
managed
vannak
to
olyanok, ami
challenge
ajánlások,
yourself,
de hát ők
I
nem
always
akarják
wondered,
megmondani a
why did you do
játékosoknak, hogy
this
mivel
yourselves,
játszanak, meg hogy
perspectives?
játszanak.
Originally, those
Meg
were
hogy
planned to be
átlátni ugye
enforced,
ezt
but obviously
nehéz, ez
specters are a whole
valóban.
can of worms. It's, hey, let's just keep
Igen,
playing
tehát
as
ebből
this
tényleg
game
fura,
monster.
meg
Also,
nagyon
we've made
nehéz
so many new monsters.
kihámozni, hogy mi az,
Talking
ami
about all the
kell,
broken,
vagy mit
there's gonna be
szeretnél
some broken in there, I
használni.
promise you.
De hát pont ez ad egy
And
csomó
there's gonna be some stuff we
lehetőséget,
can
ugye,
change.
csomóféle buildre.
I mean, they've done, but I mean, effectively, what the time between early access and this was like, okay, let's actually attempt at least to do a balance pass of this and like see if there's anything that's going to be a problem and then adjust numbers
Yeah, but now
accordingly.
you've got to account all
Yeah.
those support gems on all those monsters.
Yes, well, this is an interesting thing,
Which-
isn't it? The support gems work. The support gems work on them, and you know, like, what the hell's that going to do? Yeah, like it's impossible to completely know. But yeah, like, look, I mean, there's probably definitely some some dark secrets lying in what kind of spectre mixed with support gems are going to do.
And monsters have skills now. It's not like PoE1 where it's
Exactly.
like just a bunch of zombies just doing default attack. It's like everything pretty much has a skill now at this point. So
But you know, the great thing about it is we got to leverage all that work again for the beast taming as well. So and of course the difference there is that you also get the mods from the thing that
Oh,
you
yeah.
tamed. So you know, that's going to be
auras, ground effects.
yeah, exactly.
Spawn death explosions.
No, you've got a whole nother ruckus of potential interactions. So you know, we'll see what happens there.
We've done nice specific player versions of those things for which specifically when you tame the beast, so that they're not sitting there spamming skills in your hideout and all of that.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. So
But also, like, there actually are player versions of the mods that Res can get, like, so that we can balance them if we need to.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff would be ridiculous if you had it yourself. So, you know, basically, we still have it sort of work. It mostly works the same way, but there will just be numbers tweaked to the player versions, and the same works as well for the what do you call it? The ritual sacrifice.
Headhunter, yeah.
Headhunter and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's player versions of the monster mods for that.
yeah, this new attention to these things is going to benefit like the pre-existing stuff like Headhunter and that as well. Yeah, that's insane.
There's a new. Probably should let people discover it. There's a new unique
on.
charm that possesses you with a random Asmeri spirit as well, and so you get the daemons and the stats, and those technically also have player versions too. But actually, not to necessarily make things worse, to make things better, because monsters are balanced to fight player life and monster life, not in the same universe. So actually what we've done is all the things you steal that are monsters and the monster skills, like the explosions and the summoning bears and all that, we've actually specifically balanced them way up to be more effective against monster. So when you steal them, they're much more powerful actually. Just so they're not just tickling monsters and doing 1% of their life.
Nem tudom, ezek amikor így most
It was mentioned
beszélgetnek,
in
nem
chat,
tudom,
actually,
ez talán nem
the
annyira
whole, like,
érdekes.
Asmeri modifiers and things on stuff that wouldn't transfer over with the companion system, surely.
No.
That would be a little bit too far,
Yeah,
perhaps a
yeah.
bit unhinged.
We actually had to, because this is certainly a benefit. Once you have tamed the beast, it is not tradable. And people might immediately be like, oh, so that's sad. Well, the issue is, and as much as you might want some of that, I'm sure you don't want to be carrying around a whole bunch of tame beasts in your inventory all the time. So that every single time you find a good rare, all of a sudden you have to go and...
Because it would mean that finding a rare would become a thing. Yes, exactly.
It's
Be
actually
lehet
like this
fogni valamiket,
annoying
amit
in
a
order
Path
to
of
make the
Exile
most
1-ben
money,
is
I have
be
to be
lehetett, vagy
constantly
valami
thinking
ilyesmit
about
tudod
and carrying around
magyarázni, én
tame
azt
But
nem
then we also
vágom
made it so that
annyira.
as soon as you activate a beast, then no one who comes into the instance after
Yeah,
that
so
is
you-
allowed to
so you
tame it.
can't do
So
any,
you
like-
can't TFT the it's
Yeah.
there's
volt
like a whole
valami
there's a lot of
ilyesmi
thinking about that
egyébként?
stuff in order to make it so that
It's a sad thing to have to have lost, but it is like, no, I'm not signing up
I
for
didn't
that.
even think about that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like, the like needing for cheat sheets and guides
exactly,
and stuff.
right.
Like,
And so you have to be
which
really
beats are
careful.
worth
You have to be
some
so
currency
careful.
this week.
And the thing is like it's like we design this thing and then think, oh, trading beasts is going to be fun, but then you realize that the horrific reality
actually.
of what it will turn into. It's like, yeah, okay,
Oh,
well,
no.
but yeah, at least we're thinking about that kind of thing. Like with more experience that we have now, early, so that we don't
We've
sort of
been
run
down
into
that
those
road
problems.
before.
Exactly.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've learned from past
Yep.
issues with that sort of trading.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, talking about some of the other new skills, we had the addition of the rower, which was teased quite some time ago, I think.
Yes.
But you've got it in and working now, and it looks
Yes.
like it's moving around pretty good.
Yes.
and
Yes.
It's
Új
obviously
skillekről van szó, de
you've got,
mutathatnának
like, a big
ilyenkor
downside.
valamit, hogy mit tud ez az új
You can't use
skill.
melee from it, so it's
Valami
for
kis
ranged
Yeah.
attacks.
ilyen,
But it does seem
kirakhatnák
like one
ide
of
ezt
those
az
things
új
that's going to be like
skillt.
everyone's going to use or no one's going to use because it's a clear speed machine.
It is a concern. I mean, look, my ideal situation is that you're using it sometimes and not using it other times. Like, if you're using it like during clear, I think it will, like you will definitely want to, but we want to just make sure that we've got like sort of fun things like that, and like it's just a cool fantasy. Like there's stuff like that I just want to get in, and it's like look, if it doesn't work later, if we have to nerf it, I mean sure, I suppose, but like I want something like that to exist. We believe that it is balanced as much as we can.
You sound very convinced.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's balanced.
Well, as I said earlier, you can probably get builds that get to the point of parrying indefinitely. So you can. That means in theory you can probably get to the point of running a rower indefinitely.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Again, enough evasion and enough stagger
Yeah,
specking
yeah.
into. And
És
all
az
that.
egyik az halkabb, másik
Fundamental
hangosabb.
question, actually. Like, what's its move speed based on? Its own move speed?
The move speed is just your move speed, like
Oh, it's got-
but it's
but
what
without the
you're,
penalty.
but what you don't get is the penalty for when you
of
attack.
course.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that-
But it's funny though, because like even though it doesn't have a move speed bonus, it feels like you're motoring when you're using it, just because of the fact you don't get that downside
Yeah.
anymore. Like you feel like the fastest thing on the planet.
It is.
When you're doing
There are other like more mechanical benefits, like it's considered a companion, which is a kind of subclass of minion that we've added, where you can only have one of each one companion base is a keystone for another, but you can only have one of each type. So like you can have a tame beast and a rower with the keystone.
Oh, right, yeah.
But inherently you can only have one companion.
Right, so you can't use a tamed beast if you're using the road.
And then there are heaps of passives for like if you have a companion, like companions while they're in your presence and all that kind of stuff. Heaps of that stuff around the bottom of the tree.
Yeah, I saw you guys remade the minion damage is player damage node on the tree. It's your companion damage nodes become player damage nodes. And I was like, oh, that looks like
yes,
I'm going
that
to take
too.
that.
Well, so that's the like companion where it's like more the mercenary over to ranger huntress is more like yeah, you want your one powerful minion, and benefiting that benefits you, and you benefit it, and there's that like, synergy between you and your companions.
So since it is a companion, I like the idea of like balance-wise, maybe it ends up being that you're like map clearing on rollback, and then you get to the boss and you dismount like old school mounted knights who charge in battle and then dismount and fight.
Yep.
So if it ends up like that, that seems like that would be a pretty cool balance for it.
that should be the best way to use it, I believe.
Yeah, because then you gain access to your dodge roll for the boss fight where you need it.
Yeah.
And does the roller then kind of do a bit?
A mi az, hogy ez a mount, ez ugye a támadás közben sem fog valami movement speedet, vagy a movement speedre hatni, de hogy boss fightnál meg érdemesebb lesz leszállni róla, mert hogy ott azért majd, ugye ott meg nem tudsz dodge-olni a mounton.
And you can support it with minion supports to make it more durable and all of that. So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's the one that's
I
like
mean, logikus.
the minion takes 10% of the damage before you do. So sacrificial bird.
Yeah, true.
Poor little guy. So that sounds. I'm looking forward to playing around with that one then. Speaking of new content, 100 new uniques this time. So how many are you aiming for, kind of in general? Is this about like filling that roster
Well,
out?
we want to have every base type have a unique for the purposes of chance.
outside of boss uniques.
Outside of boss uniques, so we want every base type to have to have a unique that you can chance.
100 unique, amiből lesz 2
one of the things, of
használható.
course, that we had that was sort of a problem in early
Többit
access
meg
is
majd
that
széttöröd.
because of the way, because when we were designing uniques, we kind of designed them like in order from base type up, just literally because that's the way that like spreadsheets are arranged. It's like we ended up with all the low level uniques first, kind of before the high ones, and it was kind of, it's like we didn't see that mistake coming. Like it was kind of stupid because
we thought we'd get
we
through
thought
way
we'd get through
more
them all,
of
right? We were like,
so-
okay, we'll get all the uniques, and so we designed them all. It's like, okay, we'll start working on the art, just go down the list. So then we're like, oh crap, now we don't have very many in-game uniques. So this time we're like, okay, we really need to make sure that in-game uniques are a thing. There's way more of them. So the focus really is on making sure there's lots of cool stuff to find. Lots of really chase things that you can get.
Na,
it's not
az jó hír, azt mondja,
You
hogy
discovered the sort order.
ezek az endgame unique-ok, ezek már inkább olyanok lesznek, amit majd így, hogy mondjam, szeretnénk megszerezni.
Yeah, like you should. It should be a lot better.
Tehát már erre kíváncsi leszek. Egyébként, amit mutattak, azok nem voltak
of
rosszak.
course.
Nem tűnt rossznak
Now,
így első
100
blikre.
yeah, just keep going until well, kind of honestly, we never really stop making uniques. Like
Yeah.
especially anyone familiar with Path of Exile 1's history, is every single expansion since the dawn of time has had new uniques added to it. So, there's a lot there, and there's going to be a lot here eventually as well. So yeah.
So then let's talk about the idea of like players seeing a unique and be like, 1x, that's not very good. What do you guys want uniques to be in Path of Exile 2? Like, how powerful should they be? What should they be aiming to do? And how should they fit the rares in that slot?
I mean, there's always a tension because we want rares to still matter. Like, we don't want just your character to be just only full of uniques. So it really is like the role can evolve. So at the start of the game, they're really supposed to be more about that. So the earlier game uniques are supposed to do 2 things. One of them is when you find them, they should be powerful for a little while.
Yeah.
But then also they have a some kind of combo thing that you might be able to do with them at endgame. But we don't always know exactly what that might be. Like, I mean, we've got sort of ideas, obviously, but it's like we don't necessarily design them to say, okay, this unique definitely has like an in-game build that's going to be actually strong to do with it. And that's because you're kind of putting in things where, later on some other mechanic might come along or something might happen, and then people find an interesting interaction, and that's when the unique kind of comes into its own. And I mean, that's the same as like Magic card design philosophy, that kind of stuff. You just put in like kind of weird stuff and sort of, maybe you find something. But obviously it can mean that like, when people see a new unique, they might they dismiss it. But then one day they might also be paying vast amounts for it if it becomes a meta build. So, but I feel like a game has to have that stuff in it in order to feel like there's lots of interesting ways to experiment, because like, it's like the feeling of being the first person to discover some new interaction is an amazing thing, and then when people see something that like feels smart, and it's like, if we don't have uniques that just take chances and do weird shit, we'll never have that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah.
So
when we're designing a unique, we don't think about what's the value going to be.
Yeah.
We're not even coming out of it going like, this is going to be really expensive, or this is going to be really cheap.
Well, in some cases,
Well,
you
yeah,
knew what you were doing with that Herald unique.
Nah, not it's more of the charm and.
Na, mert ugye a csávó azt
You're
kérdezte,
aiming for the- Honestly,
ugye
someone said
unikokkal
the other day, they're
kapcsolatban
like,
ez a
a
tipik,
successful
amit én
unique
is
is one that
mondok,
should
hogy
be divisive. And I was like,
egyik
I
se
agree
ér szart se,
for the most
kb.
part, but not every
De hogy mi
unit should
ezzel a
follow it.
terv, vagy
Some should
milyennek
just be
kéne lenni
clearly,
itt a
this is powerful, I
játékban.
want it for sure.
Mert sok unik ugye tudjuk nem ér
And others
szart
are
se.
like, what can I do with
Bizonyos
this
unikok igen.
now? And then others are
amiket
just
tudsz
like,
használni
we don't know if
buildekben.
anyone's going to do anything with this, throw it in. And sometimes it doesn't get anything happen with
Ők
it for
meg
3
azt mondják,
years.
hát nem is olyan tetszett neki,
But
hogy
we don't know
láttuk,
that
de
necessarily. It's like, let's
a
just take an
kérdés így,
experiment
de
and throw it in there.
azt
and let the
mondta,
players
hogy
make it.
ők mindig a rare-ek lennének a meták. A unikok legyenek használhatóak, meg early game-ben legyenek jók, meg powerful, tehát hogy erőteljes dolgokat adjanak, de hogy azokat idővel azért dobd el, és fejlődj tovább, és stb. De ettől függetlenül nem értek egyet, mert egy unik az ne ilyen item legyen egyébként. Tehát én ezzel mondjuk pont nem értek egyet velük, de oké, hát ők tudják.
Yeah, 100%.
Meg hogy ne csak abból álljon egy build, hogy tele vagy ilyen unikokkal, meg mit tudom én. Most így nyilván amiről 2 perc ezelőtt beszéltek, azt próbálom így visszaadni.
Where do they want to be in terms of like?
Nem tudom, nektek erről mi a véleményetek? Engem ez mindig is zavart
So
egyébként.
it's really tricky. So whenever we're looking, so if there's a unique that's broken, I guess there's 2 responses, right? One of them is make it rare enough that you only get the brokenness after the point when you're at the point where you're supposed to get that, right?
Yep.
Which is to say, like, you know, post pinnacle boss type, like level of character
Yes.
development, right? And then the other response would be nerf the actual unique, and it honestly is a case by case. Like, you know, so I think that like Temporalis, for example, actually got nerfed in both ways. The actual unique was nerfed a little bit, I believe, although I don't believe it's maybe as much as what players might expect. But then also you've got okay, whatever. But also we have made that one rarer.
It's still pretty crazy.
Oh,
in
it's
the
still
right
crazy
sense,
for sure,
yes.
for sure. But the thing is like you want to chase stuff, right? So therefore you don't want to just go nerfing everything into the ground the moment that it's
Yeah.
good. So therefore that one becoming rarer, I think, was the right answer there, because it was way too common. Just due to the
We had also the issues with like I mean there were 3 real issues. One is darkness at one point bypassed honor loss. So all of a sudden a no-hit run, it wasn't a no-hit run.
Yeah.
You had guard bypass honor loss, so once again a no-hit run is not a no-hit run. And then there was just like, well, how can anything hit you if you can kill literally everything on your screen in 1 frame, right? So those 3 problems, and so as the balance issue of not everything surviving for more than 1 frame due to a subset of builds, and those other 2 things go away, it becomes a lot rarer in itself.
Yeah.
In that it is much harder to acquire, require like very specific and ideally high skill gameplay. And then there's just like, well, it also was just too common, the relic that yielded it.
I mean, the expectation was that, because this is a hard challenge, most of the time when people try, they will fail. But the reality is once you get the ability to do it, you just trade for that thing and get it every time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of meant that the rarity kind of didn't work like we thought. And, now that should be better in both ways.
Again, for the PoE1 players comparison, like it was far more common than Original Sin. Which was the same role in PoE1's version of the Sanctum, just to give us some sort of comparison.
It's just much easier to actually reliably do it.
And it shouldn't have been that much more common.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. So crafting really surprised me. You guys announced, I thought we'd maybe get like one little thing, maybe you'd do something with essences or something, but we've got essences coming out a lot more, it looks like. You've got, because you're violent, you can...
So greater
Yeah,
essences,
it's
greater
quite a
essences
crafting
are
dolog, yeah.
much easier to get. One thing we didn't mention in the video is that like omens are way more common, because I believe you made the change that there's an omen.
Ómenek azok többször elérhetőbbek lesznek, szerintem azt mondja. Ezt nem említették a videóban.
To do more with what crafting stuff, and so we're kind of like, well, let's just make sure we're at least adding, 3 or 4 things, like new things to. And,
Every ritual will now have at least one omen in the
Na, minden rituál fog tartalmazni egy óment legalább.
omen I'm going to get and hope it's a good one, and
Love it.
maybe most often it's not, but
But yeah, the greater
Aha, és hát nyilván lesz közt olyan, amit könnyebben megtalálsz, meg nehezebben, de most a rituálokban gyakoribbak lesznek az ómenek, ez most érdekesebb.
We've got higher level mods that you can get from them. There's like a ton more runes. There's like, like I mean, we just wanted to expand the set, and
Ugye jönnek a runáknak ezek a szintjei, az is érdekes.
The niche mods that you can get and craft on things, like it just needed more options, and it's sort of interesting because like some people say, oh, you don't have crafting in PoE2 because we don't have a crafting bench, but it's like we actually have a huge number of crafting options, and the crafting being good kind of comes down to like how many of these kind of weird systems are there and how they can interact. But we just have to be really careful because you don't want to get to the point where ground items no longer matter. Like and I think PoE1 kind of basically did get to that point for various reasons, where like people aren't caring about what's on the ground nearly as much. So we still want to make sure with every change we're making that they still use the ground stuff, that you're still excited for things on the ground, like, and so that's like a really careful balancing act because they do directly.
Mert ugye azt mondja, hogy
the stuff you can craft, the less important the ground stuff is. So you kind of it's a really sort of subtle balancing act.
PoE1-ben ugye ott nem igazán használják a ground itemeket, ezek gondolom, ami droppolt item. Ez a ground item, és hogy inkább ugye a craftingnak van elég erős befolyása a jó cuccokra, hogy úgy tudsz jó cuccot szerezni, és hogy próbálják ezt a PoE2-ben ezt másképp csinálni, és ezért nem annyira erős a crafting benne, mert hogy használd azokat a cuccokat, és amik kiesnek, vagy valami, tehát nagyjából ilyesmi.
Because they don't, they're on top of the stuff that you can get on the ground. So that's.
Hát egyetértek,
when it comes to the kind of the base mods,
használd mind a két dolgot, persze. És ne csak craftolj jó cuccokat, mert annak sincs túl sok értelme.
And it's just that on top of that you get the more deterministic things that you can add in addition to. And then when you do it that way, it works really well. So socketables work really well as a crafting system for that reason.
Well, so on that topic, we've had this talking to you. It's like you're always saying to me that like this rune system is our crafting bench, but players don't keep asking for a bench anyway.
Right.
So obviously there's like a branding issue or a functionality gap.
It is funny because I was actually saying the other day that like if we had literally had that system be identical, except that the way it was themed was that there's a crafting bench you go to and craft extra mods on the items, like which literally be functionally the same, I think, and required materials that are effectively the runes that you get. Like then I feel like people would be thinking that we've got a crafting bench. But yeah, ultimately that is that the rune system, the socketables are what replaced the crafting bench in the PoE1 style crafting bench.
And I guess it must have also been like with that initial kind of output of them was just not as many options as
100% as well. So that is the issue, and that's because they were relatively late in development. So now we're just sort of expanding that, and we'll continue to add more socketables probably with every release, right? Like we'll add more categories of them or do different things. It's like expanding the kind of type of mods because there is a thing where it's the more like in the base mod pool for items, there can only be things that are really fundamental, and so anything that's kind of out there, we don't want to put in the base mod pool because then you end up with this sort of situation where you get items that have got random shit you don't care about. Like the crafting is where you want to have all of the kind of stuff that's like very build specific. And so adding more mods to that pool so that you can do that is the right idea.
Why is it that you can't socket and rune some things, like non-attack weapons, for example?
Well,
it was more just a choice for asymmetry where we just wanted these things to feel different. There was also just like a little bit of a like, in the future, we'll add some system where we can do something else there. And so just not having everything be completely identical. Much like how, the quality on those weapons works differently, where it affects the skill as opposed to just, base damage.
I do think it is something that we should be probably looking into sooner rather than later, though.
Because the asymmetry things, it's good to have like not everything be super homogeneous, but because we're talking about the importance of it being that extra layer of control over your items, which you just don't have if you're doing spellcaster.
Well, maybe we'll add an arcanist's bench and theme it that way for those
okay.
ones.
All right, you forced my hand. I have to bring this up now. Can we get some sort of like cohesive, all-in-one bench for disenchanting, salvaging, selling for gold, arcanist benching at endgame? I get in the campaign having these things be separate, but like at endgame, it's so much clicky.
You're not happy enough with them just being next to each other, putting them next to each other, and
no.
Right. Well, that's all right. I'll think about that one.
Okay, good.
Ja, most kérdezte, hogy nem lesz endgame-ben egy ilyen mindent az egyben dolog, ahol mindent meg tudsz csinálni.
I like the sounds
de a kampány alatt rendben, hogy ezek szét vannak így szeparálva, de hogy az endgame-ben milyen jó lenne, hogy ezeket így mindent egy helyen meg tudnád csinálni. Ami egyébként nem hülyeség, talán endgame-ben begyorsítaná a gameplayt.
That makes sense. I mean, people are putting their NPCs within each other's personal space anyway, so the lore goes out the window at that point.
For sure.
So we've also got Fractured, crafted via an orb from the cleansed monsters. How rare are those?
How do you quantify rarity like that? They drop from the monsters. I can't remember the exact number, but like I think I was kind of saying like 1 per biome. Which is the kind of total blob of cleansed monsters, but then that obviously does get affected by things like pack size and all that on top of that.
So is that like 5 maps or something?
Well, it depends on how many of them you kill as corrupted.
Yeah,
because
so-
because the ones you didn't
Yeah.
cleanse while you were getting to the nexus, those are the ones that then become cleansed. So you kind of have to choose, like, when you go into a biome, am I going to beeline straight for the nexus and then cleanse everything, or am I going to just fight them all as corrupted to get the rewards from that? So you're kind of choosing one reward or the other based on what you decide to run.
Okay, so you can kind of leave the Nexus for last if you want to.
Yes, if you want to
use it to try and get more fractured orbs.
Well, you could,
oh no, it's the other way around.
way
So
around,
do
yeah.
Nexus first, then it cleanses all the maps,
Oh.
and then now you can get the most chance at fractured orbs, or you can fight them corrupted before going to the Nexus if you want to get the rewards that the corrupted maps have.
And we have
Ah.
for example, the corrupted bosses have their own uniques now.
Yeah, so you're gonna want that's
There's a bunch of new
those.
modifiers and
Yeah.
how they, so there's like
Yeah, yeah.
random corrupted strongbox kind of things and all of that
Clever.
stuff. So
Yeah.
you kind of really are like, I'm gonna have a look at the mods.
right.
I like
Are
this. I'm gonna
there-
do this, then this, then this, then the Nexus, and then I'm gonna do the rest cleansed.
Does the cleansed boss have its own uniques as well?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
It does have. It guarantees a fractured orb though as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So you can
and-
get the boss. will-
So and you'll display if you hover over the map and it says like contains, I can't remember his name. Then you run it and kill it, you will get a fractured orb. So at least you will know that will drop one.
yeah.
Right. So with the fractured orbs being a wave fracturing, that's obviously super powerful for crafting.
Tehát ezekről korruptált területekről ilyen fracture dolgokat tudsz gyűjteni, ezekről beszélgetnek, ugye, hogy tudsz hozzájutni. De hogy a boss az fixen fog dobni egy ilyet, azt hiszem, azt mondja, még hogyha cleanzelt is, vagy valami ilyesmi. Hát nem tudom, hogy lehet előbb cleanzelni, azt most még nem világos még, de...
Yeah, probably.
Hát tudjátok, akkor írjátok be.
Honestly, and let people choose how they want to use them.
De egyébként ezekről a mapokról is gyűjthetsz majd ilyen...
Yeah, but they kind of already do. They kind
Ilyen
of do.
fractured-öket, ilyen fractured dolgokat, amik által nagyon erősek
erősek
lesznek a craftingnál.
There's other little subtle things, like for example, the cleansed monsters within cleansed maps can't drop equipment as a little thing. So they have much higher, obviously they're dropping things more like waystones, tablets, currency.
Aha, tehát a
they don't
cleanse
get to drop
mapeken meg
any
inkább
of the
ilyen
armor or anything.
dolgokat
So they're
dobtak,
more like
azt
currency
mondja.
sources is like an interesting
Yeah,
subtle thing.
if you want more currency, then play
Hogy
cleanse.
more currency dobnak, waystone-t, runát, tököm tudja, de nem itemeket.
Recombination with the new, more accessible at low and mid tier
Design
recombination.
4.0. Yeah.
This is yes, recombination's certainly undergone some changes. This is a huge leap forwards compared to 0.1's crafting.
For sure.
So was it just about that you had to establish that really like humble baseline for crafting so that you could then go crazy with it like this?
Honestly, I mean, look, on some level, it can just be, like you need an economy. You need to see how things evolve. We just don't want to do too much at once. I mean, although this may seem like quite a lot. I mean,
It does, yeah.
but the thing is like, but in terms of the initial system, it's like if we'd have had all that at the start,
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't have been like, we'll put it this way: it is hard to take the stuff away. So that's why we have to be a little bit careful as we do this.
Yeah, I guess you needed to kind of assess the fundamental things like the no scours, the no
Yeah, 100%,
bolts and stuff like that as well, because then you can have a better idea of how to build off that.
Hát lesz itt egy csomó újdonság egyébként, amivel érdemes lesz majd foglalkozni. Aztán nyilván lesz olyan, aki már egy hét múlva azt fogja mondani, hogy de már unja.
That's how it is these days.
Oh, yes.
I expect a crafting
Azok a
system.
szerencsétlenek itt hónapokig értek. Csinálják, aztán játékosok meg egy hét után már unom.
Love it, perfect. So let's talk about endgame then, because that had some humble origins as well with the initial implementation of PoE2's endgame. Obviously trying some new things, being a bit experimental, not necessarily just wanting to copy PoE1's endgame, but how far of your vision was 0.1's endgame? Was it what you want?
I would say that the main problem that we had is there wasn't enough overlapping axes of randomness, as we call them, where effectively you need to have it so that when you go into a map, there's just chances for random shit occurring, and then that random shit might happen alongside some other random shit, and then now the thing together is like a new scenario. So I mean, effectively,
Random shit squared.
yeah, exactly, right. So it's like if you look at what we actually added here in terms of like encounters, if you will, whatever that means to you, like we've added kind of more than 40, probably something approaching 50 encounters, and that's if you count things like each rogue exile is a separate one, and each spirit's a different one, and things like that, right? So those are the things. But the big difference between the ones we had before and the ones we have now is that most of these ones can overlap with other things. So you have a situation where you've got the Asmeri wisp that happens to infect the unique boss of the area, and then that leads to a combat situation that you haven't had to deal with before, or then you've got some essence thing that or oh crap, this other wisp like caused the thing to turn into a boss that then it's just like it's all that stuff combining, or like what happens when this goes with a with a unique strongbox, and it's like all that combining stuff, and that's what leads to the situation where you've got an exponential explosion of like possible combat situations, and then sometimes you just run into stuff that you've never seen before because of that, because of this combined in some interesting way. And that's something that definitely PoE1 has got very well, because it's got so many of these things that have been added over time. And it's also something that we took care to make sure that each league specifically did. So what PoE2 lacked was, I think, that. And so that will mean, I think, that the endgame is overall just much more engaging. Now, obviously, we're going to be adding more content and more of the other stuff, but fundamentally, it's like it was specifically more of that type of stuff that we needed to do. And honestly, I don't think we've even got enough yet. Like, we want even more. We'll keep on adding that stuff, but it needed to become a focus. And I think part of the reason is that when we're first working on the end game, it's like we need to come up with the big ticket items, right? Like, what are the the league things and like the maps, and we need to come up with all that stuff. And so it's the little detaily kind of things that kind of a little bit require a bit more like time and stuff to work on, even though they're actually like relatively efficient to make. Like, we can make a lot of them when we do actually sit down and design them, because they're like making a new strongbox. Like, sure, it's work, but it doesn't take like that long, if you know what I mean. But it is. But it is that stuff that really adds all the flavor and kind of interest. So we'll just be continuing to do that through the game. And I mean, even yesterday we were having a conversation about like making it so more of the maps, even just like regular maps, have more interesting just little things that happen in them and stuff like that. Like more like what the campaign has.
Love that.
So we haven't like got there yet, but like through early access, we'll definitely be just like introducing more of those little details everywhere, so that you get the interesting things happening.
Yeah, so a bit like those exploration mechanics in campaigns.
100%, yeah, exactly. That's just, we just want to make sure that you feel that same way through the end game as well.
And with the leagues as well.
Yeah.
And like, there's really only so much randomness that can occur.
Nehéz ezt így pár szóban összefoglalni, amit így elmondanak, basszus, főleg így, hogy nem vagyok valami szinkron tolmács nyilván, de...
5 different factions, things like that, and it is very much our intention to expand on all the leagues, to have way more random things occurring, mini bosses spawning.
Igen, tehát hogy próbálnak ugye több dolgot belevinni az endgame-be, hogy még nagyobb kihívás legyen, meg több randomitás, és hogy ezek a dolgok így még jobbá tegyék az endgame-et, vagy hogy mondjam, és még jobb dolgok jöjjenek ki össze benne, tehát hogy ezek így ezek a plusz dolgok, amiket beleraknak, ugye ezt amit most belepakolnak, hogy ezek is így feldobják az endgame-et, úgymond, és ne legyenek ennyire, ugye mert most is a mapek azért tudjuk, hogy nagyjából mire gyúrnak az emberek, és akkor ezek így egy idő után ugye egy ilyen sablon, hogy jó, ilyen mapeket tolok csá. És hogy ezek így kicsit megfűszerezik majd, hogy úgy mondjam, vagy nem tudom, hogy mondjam ezt.
Adding content is no longer a process of like, we work on a thing and then the players get to play, like it gets into a situation where like adding content has more value than just the content itself, because it adds to everything else too, and so that kind of makes it feel like the world gets.
Yeah, ezek a rógokra, akik jönnek, az vicces.
Squared thing where the square of all the stuff we add. So that, like basically it'll feel like it's ramping up in terms of interest as we add more content, rather than just feeling like you're just continuing like rather than every league thing like you just add the same amount. It'll feel like it gets even bigger each time.
Yeah, like when you add Asmeri Wisps, that's not just about adding that. It interacts with all the other things that already exist that it can go ahead and affect. So that's tackling one of the, ultimately I think the biggest things is just that like the core basic mapping of running an empty map was boring, and that's never what you want to be, obviously. So like some of the issues there, I guess, as well, that were exacerbated by that problem was the fact that the maps were so big and that there were so many of them. Obviously that's getting a lot better with the maps themselves becoming much more interesting, but it seems like this corruption and cleansing mechanic is breaking up and giving you something to progress through as you move towards the next tower or next boss or next other mechanic. I mean, I guess there's always something on your screen that you're pushing towards, it looks like.
Well, we want to try and, like, honestly, I don't even think we're even quite there yet. Like, we really want to make it so that you feel like there's lots of quests, as it were, in endgame, like not necessarily directly in the form of like here is a quest objective, but like that you sort of have this feeling of like there's like
azt akarják elérni, igen, hogy az endgame-ben azt érezd, hogy nem pontosan így, de hogy hogy úgy érezd, hogy mindig van valami küldetés, amerre kell menned, vagy amit kell csinálnod, és amit el kell érned, és haladj tovább, és hogy ott tartson a játékban nyilván.
core there to be.
Mert egy idő után ez, ami most van, ugye ez is tud unalmassá
It seemed like
válni.
this like explorable world map thing that you did for endgame.
És ezért hozzák ezt a corruption dolgot is, mert ez is ugye egy ilyen pluszt ad hozzá, mint egy küldetés, hogy leklinzeld, úgy megy tovább a következő torony felé, stb. Ugye ezért lesz kevesebb torony is valószínűleg, meg azok is erősebbek lesznek, ez érdekessé teszi egyébként. Legalábbis erre azt gondolom, hogy érdekessé teszi.
It's a system that you can interact with.
Exactly.
It's your skill points.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're unlocking skill points from that, which means you're unlocking more of the Atlas tree earlier on.
Your first Nexus, you have to run at a tier 1 map, and it will drop 2 skill points. It'll give you your first two skill points.
Awesome.
And then you're like, all right, where's my next Nexus? That's where I'm going for my next 2. And then your next one, and you have to do them 1 tier higher every time. The second one you go to tier 2 to get your skill points and so on and so forth.
Oké, tehát ez ugyanaz lesz, mint az eddigi mechanikák, hogy egy ilyen Nexus letolsz, kapsz 2 pontot az Atlasba, és akkor a következő az már fixen egy tírrel magasabb lesz, és így tovább, mint az eddigi endgame contenteknél.
Just go Nexus to Nexus to Nexus and get as many as you can. And if you're like, oh, I can't see any Nexus, maybe go to a tower to reveal more, and then, you know, which you're doing way less frequently, mind you, thank goodness.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a lot more objective driven as opposed to just, again, random grind and random exploration. There's at least, and you should be seeing a pretty decent chunk of unique maps.
I was going to ask, yeah.
I call them
It's
unique
funny,
maps.
it's funny because I was pointing out to Matt the other day that the distinction between a unique map and a normal, like there is no distinction anymore. We shouldn't even look at it that way. Like it should be that every map is like unique in some sense.
There's not a unique
You know,
map
there's not a
system.
We
unique
have
map.
like, we do have an icon for it because they are kind of in a different echelon. But yes, technically, unique map is a name that's a holdover from PoE1.
Yeah, because you can use mods with them with Waystones anyway, so it doesn't. There's no actual reason for a unique to be any different than a normal map.
You can craft
It's
it and
just,
enhance
it
it.
really
and
just
juice
it really just comes down to how rare they are relative to other things, right? So,
And how rare are they? How like
I mean,
maybe
again,
in
so hard to
terms of
explain.
player screen.
yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I think
How many
that
screens?
How many?
És akkor most ez hogy lesz?
I have
Vajon
the numbers. I just don't remember them.
well, I mean, as I said, they should be common enough that you feel like there's always some kind of objective you're excited about on the screen, right?
Honestly, more common than I was initially comfortable with, and then after trying it, I was like, okay, actually, this is like, this is.
hogy vajon lerezetelik a
I feel like
mapet?
you
Például?
initially probably want them to be common enough that you're like almost getting tired of those map layouts, so then you're incentivized to add more.
The good thing is, by the way, by adding more here, we didn't just keep them the same commonality as the two that
Vagy hát gondolom nyilván, mert hogy új liga karaktered lesz, és akkor új map lesz, endgame map.
Part of the reason the
Hát ahhoz gondolom lesz egy új endgame map, és akkor, aha,
that would have just been
akkor nyilván lesz rezetelve.
one of the other restrictions is that like the Vault of Kamasa was restricted to the Val City biome, so to speak, and that was one of the Citadel biomes. That's like one of the rarest and latest, you know? So it's like we've not only made that more common within that biome, but a lot of the new ones, in fact, all of the new ones aren't restricted to those city biomes, and thus they are appearing more frequently. And some of them are like, oh, you want deserts because they give you the essence map, or you want the mountain because they can give you this and that, you know. So like, ideally, there's a little bit of just like you see the edge of a desert, and you're like, oh my god, please.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I was going to say. This like idea of exploration is like I felt there needed to be something biomes where like you're actually pushing into a biome because there's that one node that like affected your drops slightly, but obviously that's not much.
The one that was the Shattered Lakes, for example, as you can probably imagine, only spawns in the water biome. And so there's a little bit of like, you know, and so does Untainted Paradise, and so does one other. So there are actually 3 special maps that can spawn only in the water.
Aha, tehát hogy vannak olyan special mapok, amik például csak a vizes biomnál tudnak majd spawnolni, meg ilyesmi. De hogy engem az érdekelne, hogy a mapeket vajon kicsit átalakítják-e a régieket, mert vannak, amik például totál alkalmatlanok. Ugye meg beakadsz mindenbe, meg fák, meg ajtók, meg mit tudom én, ezeket alakítsák már. Most oké, hogy jön 7 új map. Kíváncsi vagyok rájuk, hogy azokat már hogy tervezték meg.
De, that. But definitely an issue I had with it personally was that it felt very top heavy, both for the core one and also especially for the league mechanics, where like the league mechanics, you don't get points until you kill the bosses, which to me feels like the end of it for most players.
That kind of was the original pitch of that, and I wouldn't say that's really changing here, but there is more we want to do with that, and I think that it could be made better, but 0-2 isn't getting a change there to that side. But in terms of the actual core atlas, it definitely is. You know, like you're getting that earlier, there's more, it's a bigger tree, there's more interesting stuff.
There's subtle changes to getting them in the sense that, like, for example, the difficulty 0 pinnacle bosses are
Yep.
way lower life
Well, that's actually
now.
good. That's actually a very good point. So yes, difficulty 0 is now like half the life that it had before.
Na,
and
ez
so that's like a pretty
érdekes.
But
substantial
difficulty
change.
4 is currently the same
Tehát,
as what it was before. So
tehát az
same top
első
end, but,
boss,
like,
amikor
easier, more
megölöd,
accessible for
annak csak
more people
fel
at
annyi
the moment.
HP-ja lesz.
And then also
Tehát az
'cause of,
sokkal
like, you know,
nagyon bekönnyítették, hogy azért el
Reliquary
tudjál
key with the way it does,
indulni.
all pinnacle bosses can drop all
Ezek a
uniques
pinnacle
at all
bossoknál.
difficulties, except they are like substantially less common at difficulty 0, but you feel way less bad for running them at that point now.
Right.
So again, it's just opening that up to a lot more people to farm, and it's not so much dependent on if your build can't do difficulty 4, you're not really a viable
Igen, mert
character.
túl erős volt az egyébként. Hát a Deliriumos még most se tudtam letolni
Which will give
egyébként.
you your first sets of points.
Tehát nincs elég
from the
stun thresholdom,
easier
egyszer stunt kaptam, azt
That
visz
being
láthat,
said, not if
láttátok,
you're playing the most broken
kétszer rámentem, mind a
build,
kétszer
probably
meghaltunk,
just
baszki, a
the
12. vagy
With your
13.
new build, we'll
névnél.
have to see how that
Well,
balance
it's with
goes.
their new
But
broken build.
yeah,
but
well,
sure.
yeah.
És ott nem is a HP, hanem
One of
egyszerűen
the
túl nagyot ütnek rá.
Anyway, the ultimate point being, yeah, you're certainly going to get those initial set of points easier than before. However, yeah, you are right that something isn't quite right there still, and I do need to kind of explore.
We are going to do more with this like later. We've talked about this issue, but we didn't have time to do anything about it in 020 as much. But certainly by the end of early access, I think that system will probably look quite different.
Part of it also, as we were talking about before, adding all those extra bits of content to the leagues, it'll help give more interest to the trees and more nodes we can add to actually invest into. Because if you think about a breach, there's only so much you can actually modify right now. Right, there's a level of radius, speed, density of monsters, and like sure, there's the standard stuff with monsters, but like you can only go so far when you don't have all of that depth of different factions and different bosses and different mini bosses and different itemization or additional things with catalysts and whatnot. Like you are quite limited in how expansive a tree can be, and so it'd be nice to get those things in and also kind of look at the trees at the same time and reevaluate how that works, just so we can have them be more interesting while we're at it.
Right.
But yeah.
And now with the pinnacle bosses, if you're like halfway through a level, you don't need to. Oh, maybe I'll do that when I get the rest of the level now.
Yes, that was a good change. So yeah, as he was saying, as you were saying, you no longer gain experience or lose experience anymore from pinnacles, so you could just feel free to do them anytime. Yeah, I think that's just a straight up upgrade, and I think that it's not like you were playing pinnacle bosses for experience.
No.
So yeah, it does the downside is not an issue really. Yeah.
It also is the nice thing of really just keeping like if we add more leagues, for example, and we end up with a domain of timeless conflict problem, where it's just like rotations to max level, like ultra.
Yes,
ultra
we
quick.
don't want that type of content to be
at
the
least
way you
now
level.
we can say like maps are the way you level, like that is what you're doing. And sure, you might get some sort of unique map rotation here, and maybe not. I don't know. It depends. But hopefully we can avoid that. But either way, like it's just really you're playing in maps to level, and that's what you're doing.
It's
and there's something
that's
nice
not
about
itemized
that.
content, right?
At least, at least until we've added Delve.
Well, sure. I mean, there will be future parallel in-game systems.
Confirmed.
Right?
Yeah.
I know you want to do something with Delve.
Yes.
You're a fan. I mean, you made the end game look like Delve, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been a long-term problem, and one we need to properly apply to the other game as well. The whole like can't do my content because I got a level, and I'm like, even if you're only like 15% in, you're like, oh.
Yeah. It's just not as bad. Yeah. It's just not as bad in PoE1 because the leveling is faster.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
It hasn't been on our radar as much.
So speaking of like map progression, there's been some fundamental changes there. You're telling me that now you can no longer drop maps below your current level of map.
It's correct. So yes, you no longer get if
No.
you're playing a T5 map.
Amazing.
You're only going to get T5 maps. Or
Na,
if
az a
there's
map, amit
boss there,
megnyitottál,
T6
az
map.
alatti
But
szintű
also
nem
smooth the way the whole
eshet.
progression works.
Ami,
So
tehát,
eventually,
mégis nem rossz, csak egy
map will
kisebb
be way less
mapokat majd
random
nem
now
fogsz tudni
entirely.
gyűjteni, bár miért is
When you
akarnál.
kill the last rare in a map, that has it can affect it at T1. That is 100% chance to drop another map of the same tier, and then as you go up the tiers, you can still sustain that using Waystone chance. So effectively, it's de-randomized that a lot. And then there are several ways that you can get upgrades. So in terms of like going up the tiers, So one of them is that when you kill a boss, that's a guaranteed +1 upgrade. Then of course you can
Oké, tehát tier van mapon, fix, hogy esik cucc, egyébként a waystone drop sem számít, ha megölsz boss-t, az fixen egyen nagyobbat dob.
That's like a sort of guaranteed. When I say corrupt, I mean
Tehát garantáltan.
Corrupting
up +1. That lets you do the run them the same level as well. So you've kind of got those three options, but it's much more intentional now. It's like if you're going up maps, it's like you're deciding, okay, this is a thing I am doing. You don't just kind of have that like it doesn't just happen. So it's kind of supposed to make the jump like. If you're just looking to sustain, you can do that, pretty much guaranteed. And unless you're dying more than the number of times you've got portals, which is obviously the thing now that you can go through portals again, the sustain is going to be a lot easier if you are dying.
Yeah.
But then it's like once you've achieved that, it's like okay, you effectively can sustain forever. Like the cases where people just drop off the bottom and have issues should be like way less common.
Ultimately, it's way less random, way more deterministic. And ultimately you can, as long as you are able to do the not die all the time, you will sustain that tier forever.
Right.
Assuming you can roll enough, that high enough mod count, and there is a boss here. I'm going to go up a tier.
Yeah.
And you go for the boss, you kill the boss, you go up a tier.
And if you
and then you sustain that tier forever as long as you can do the difficulty. It's
and
just very clean.
And if you're adding more mods, which you do need to be doing to continue to maintain 100%. Ability to go up tiers, then and if you're doing that early, you're getting more maps than what other people are getting, which means you can do the cubing as well. Like it's just kind of like it just much more effectively gets the thing where good players can advance at the right speed, normal players don't fall off the bottom of the curve. It kind of solves all of those issues like without, but also you're not going to have just like hordes of low level waystones that you don't need as well. So like
and just no, it does. There are still you can get to the highest tiers relatively quickly. You have to prove you're good enough, your character's good enough, but if you're doing it, you get.
De most arról beszél, hogy a prók azok úgyis megkapják azt, hogy könnyebben tudnak fölfele menni, meg nem kapsz egy csomó ilyen használhatatlan low level mapot, vagy low tier mapot. De egyébként a kevésbé jó játékosok, vagy casualabbak is normálisan tudnak majd haladni. És hogyha meg elég erős, hogy megölsz egy boss, fixen tudsz egy szintet lépni, tehát hogy lesz egy ilyen előre, igen, tehát előre meghatározható módja annak, hogy tudsz előrébb jutni a mapekben, meg stb. A tírekben. Ugye most ezzel volt problémám nekem is például az első karakterrel, hogy vagy nem esett elég olyan karakter map, meg mit tudom én, de most fog egyébként, tehát az javítanak. Ez jó. Ha, és az utolsó rare, az fixen dob egy garantált mapet elvileg.
Obviously, as it gets more difficult, and you get less portals, you start to get to the point where you're going to run into trouble. But if you're a good player, you should be able to get up into the top and sustain very well.
Yep. You mentioned the idea of maps dropping magic by default.
Yes.
Is that something you're still doing, or?
I believe it is. But no, actually, wait. But there wasn't a concern about that, which I wanted to talk to you about later.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because the concern was raised that I think is valid. So we were going to make it so that maps drop magic and above, but there might be issues, so we'll discuss that later on.
Well,
non-decided.
Yeah,
undecided. Yeah.
Undecided, yeah.
You thought it was decided. I just
got a week left.
Yeah, we've got a week left. It's fine.
Still figuring. It sounds like much more deterministic progression if you're able to prove the power that you have.
That's the main thing.
It just should be, am I strong enough to do this? Yes, I can do it.
Right.
Not, am I lucky enough to do this, and am I strong enough to do this?
Great.
One of those axes.
Ja, ez jó, amit mond, igen, hogy ezzel, hogy megváltoztatták valójában, igen, tehát az lesz, hogy nem az, hogy én szerencsés vagyok, esett nagyobb map, mehetek előre, hanem hogy elég erős voltam, leöltem a boss, akkor mehetek előre, és folytathatom nagyobb térképeken, stb. Ez így, a progresszió jobb lesz ilyen szempontból.
Is there like a map modifier for that, or something to guarantee it, or something like that?
I think in this case, this one is the exception, whereas you can get normally guaranteed of the other things. We wanted the exiles to be one that you can't just guarantee all the time.
They don't always have uniques.
Yeah.
But when they do, they're using them. The AI is very cool, like how it works.
I mean, they can have 0, 1, 2. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from having uniques in every slot.
What?
But like, it is.
There's a chance that would be.
It is absurdly rare.
I assume it's
Yeah.
just rolled per slot, basically, right?
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
rolled
it's
per
rolled per
slot,
slot.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
But
So
you
we're talking
might have a
like
line of just
fraction of a
Azt
fraction.
király, hogy behozzák
Yeah,
egyébként ezt hogy lesz az a plusz, hogy ahány portán nyílik, gyakorlatilag annyiszor úgymond meghalhatsz, vagy hogy is mondjam, tehát annyi életed van, és akkor visszamehetsz ugyanarra a mapra, hogyha van több ilyen lehetőséged, azt hiszem, szerintem végre, az nagyon jó, hogy behozzák, mert az, hogy elbuktad a mapot, mondjuk volt tényleg egy jó mapod, és csak azért, mert bekaptál valamit és elbukod, ez hülyeség volt. Meg hát így, ugye hányszor volt olyan, hogy emlékezzetek vissza, én is ott meghaltam a Breach mapon, leöltem nem tudom, 9 Breach-et a 12-ből, vagy valami ilyesmi, ott meghaltam, azt ott maradt minden cucc a földön, hát nevetséges.
You won't know they're in the map ahead of time, much like anything random you run into.
But they talk though, and they'll say something before
They monologue before they murder you.
Don't know if I'd go to quite the level of
Again,
monologue.
when I said some insult you, I'm not joking. Like some do literally insult you, and I believe one of the monks is a pacifist, and he's like, I don't want to do this. Don't force my hand. He'll do it anyway. But,
I'm not.
Yeah.
You're just like running away.
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
don't make me
Don't
do
force my
this.
hand. Yeah, exactly.
well, look, you can just run away. You know, I really like the here's an occasional spike in difficulty, and again, it's important that they are relatively rare for that reason as well. But I do want it to be when you find one, you are very excited to kill it, and of course, even though they portal out, you still have your number of portals you have. So unless you're running like a full 6 modded Waystone, just get back in there, and he's gone, or whatever, you've lost your uniques or non-uniques, whatever they had, but either way, just move on, you know?
I mean, you guys were somewhat forgiving with this. You didn't make it so that they take your items.
Yes, that would have been good.
That's an event at some point.
Don't give me that idea.
That's maybe a 1 week event or something in the future.
Pretty easy to do.
Just take one of your items.
Yeah.
And then you got a nemesis system where you can find them and try and get it back in the future.
And you add the Tame Rogue Exile gem.
I don't tames the right.
Majd viccelődnek ezzel, hogy majd igen, majd befogod ezeket a Rogue Exile-okat, meg minden, és akkor jaj, persze.
Like, yeah, you wanna follow me?
I mean, to be fair, that would be a fun system.
It actually would. That's actually not a bad
Running
idea.
up and just being like, hey, I'm here, give me 100,000 gold and I'll be your ally. Is kind of
I know you've
Come
tinkered
on.
with the idea of a hireling system at points
Yeah,
in the
well, I
past,
have,
so and now you've got your mercenary hireling system, right? Rogue Exiles. They recruit the one with good uniques.
We'll see. We'll see.
Going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
So we did have some league mechanics come over from Path of Exile 1 to Path of Exile 2. You're going to be looking to port more over? Are you going to be doing some unique ones that we haven't seen before?
I mean, we're definitely going to be doing more unique ones that are, that are just completely different outside of what we've done in PoE1. Absolutely.
Aha. Tehát több olyat próbálnak, ami egyedi lesz, és nem olyan, ami már a Path of Exile 1-ben volt, olyan league mechanikákat kreálni.
Like, as we kind of get, past the end of early access and as we're sort of, just going on, that each time we do something, we're both adding a completely new league mechanic, but also potentially bring something back as well, kind of like as another additional kind of like, here's another fun thing. So that's probably sort of what I imagine will happen. But it kind of really is case by case. Like some things we don't want to bring back, some things we do, like, and my opinion can change on a dime as well. Like if someone suggests like a new way to interpret something, then I might be like, oh, actually that is great. So it honestly people assume that we have a full plan of literally everything, but it's like in reality it's like it's very much responsive.
Nem, de arról én is szívesen hallanék, hogy lesz egy in-game valami AH vagy valami, de az nem lesz állítólag.
Relates to the things that like are definitely happening, right? You're talking
Kár, pedig abban egyetértünk, hogy az nem a legjobb, de most értem, most mit tudsz csinálni, baszki?
You've got outsources, armies of people kind of working on that stuff, and then all the kind of like more incidentally stuff is very much like, oh, let's do something cool, let's just make this, what if we do this, and we don't have a, I don't have a plan for the next 12 strong boxes. It's just just come up with an idea and
Várj, de nem tettem ki chatet.
just a little project for a designer to work.
De nem tettem ki chatet.
I felt somewhat definitively Path of Exile 1 in terms of clear speed, like Breach, for example, have settled out here too.
Ott van.
In a good spot, or were they a good idea to bring over?
Bocsi, mert így akkor látjátok, hogyha ír valaki a YouTube-on is.
I certainly wouldn't want to remove it.
Bár most úgy látom, nem ír senki, de azért most legalább így látjátok.
It has.
Let's just say that without a doubt.
It's much better now to PoE2 standards, yeah.
D4
It's
kappa.
like currently on PoE2, it's just too out of control. It just needs to chill. There was a little bit of an assumption made where it was just like well, you'll get overwhelmed by monsters, and it's more a matter of survive as long as you can. And then, of course, because you get self-propagating herald builds that are just literally can kill anything.
Which, by the
in
way,
every
heralds
direction.
don't self-propagate anymore.
Just get that out of the way.
Just get that out of the way right now.
The power of the characters kind of
Yeah.
distorted the league balance
Yeah.
in a way where it's like we have to, make some changes. So yes,
Yeah.
like it's coming down a bit.
I think we saw that
sure.
one coming. with the
Yeah,
heralds.
well, 100%. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that people will say they saw coming, but it certainly does end up being the case that like the patch notes are, so by the way, we aren't releasing them at the end of this live stream. We're going to be releasing them next week, but they are going to feel like a bit of a nerf fest for sure because like there's a lot of things that needed
Yeah,
to get.
let's talk balance.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, all right.
My
Settle in here.
expectations
Yeah.
and anticipations are
Yeah.
that this first
Egyébként
one's gonna
egyetértek, tehát valamit ezzel kezdhetnének, de hát csomóan itt azt mondták, hogy tapasztaltabbak, hogy rohadtul nem
Yeah, then maybe
fognak.
over time it'll become a sledgehammer, and then like a fine carpenter.
Ja, most itt
Sure, that definitely
viccelődnek
should be
itt
the
dolgok,
case.
As I
ezért
said
beszélek
earlier, it's like
ilyenekről, mert
10,000 things will change this time. 5,000 things will change next time. Then hopefully we can halve it every single time.
halving.
People should really be going in with the expectation that like nothing they knew about how the game was balanced before is the
Forget
same. Just
everything
forget everything you know. Like exactly. So basically we'll that kind of just means that like everyone who's finding builds like do it again. Like you are going to find more shit that is like outrageously broken again, but it is not going to be the same shit that was broken before. Yeah.
Attribute stacking, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. So I mean, it's the hope is though that yes, you're right. It'll stabilize to the point, and like I it will take time, but we will get to the point where we no longer have things that are easy to become outrageous with. Right, like the idea is like it shouldn't be that you can just slap a combination of supports together and then like you're just like destroying pinnacles in 14 seconds. Like it should be that.
14's a long time.
Yeah, okay, sure.
What
But
do you mean 14? That sounds like terrible.
Yeah,
Builds. That's
exactly.
not even a PoE.
Yeah, no, but that
Yeah,
was
we
like
got-
no items, right? But anyway, so the point is that like the first time you fight a pinnacle, it should be a bit of a fight. But then of course you do get back to the ability after like when like kind of like continuing to expand, like continue to develop your character post pinnacle to the point of being able to annihilate them in seconds.
Yeah.
But it's just like that has to be earned. It can't just be that like just
Egyébként
a
olyat
combination of
behozhattak
supports that you get
volna.
trivially will do that.
Or like
Ugye a Pinnacle boss, hogyha leölött például, vagy ott ugye akkor a környező mapeken kapsz valami király boostot, vagy valami nem, tehát az például tök jó lenne.
Got some shit going on, but it really has to be that there is an economic factor involved in becoming ridiculous.
Yes.
And so it's when that's not the case that we have a problem that we need to hit shit with a big giant balance sledgehammer.
Yeah, so originally I was going to come in and like ask about all the specific things, but we can just assume that like it's not going to be chaos. So
Yeah.
I like the idea instead of focusing on kind of like your core. What are you aiming for? What are your goals? What are your metrics? So
Ó, a mikrofonja elment?
a number of like damage / how fast you kill a pinnacle boss.
Yeah.
That you're aiming for, and then how much players can exceed that, and you're like,
Yeah. So it really should be that you're not killing, as I said, not killing pinnacle bosses that fast at the moment. Like a good sort of benchmark for like just a guy walks in and like has kind of got something that's like not stupid, but also like not like doing something, like not crazy. And we kind of imagine that they should have about 50k DPS doing something like that. But at the same time, anything up to 500k DPS is
10 times.
Is also okay. And well, that'll take you from taking a 3-minute fight down to like a 20-second fight. Like that's your range of like potentially acceptable kind of things going on. But if you're doing above that, then you're in like we're probably going to nerf you territory at some point. So that's kind of like the thing. Now it's worth mentioning that like we've lowered like the life of pinnacle bosses to get that to be right and sort of things like the difference between a T15 boss and a pinnacle boss was just way too much. So that has been that's been sorted out. Like it's things like that we just need to sort of get things in the right place here. So that's a sort of expectation. Now, obviously, people are going to still find ways to get 10 million DPS somehow, I'm sure, even though we're like nerfing many things. But the thing I think that when we're talking about nerfs and how we want to do, my key thing that I want to try and achieve always is that whenever we're nerfing something, we're only nerfing the thing that was particularly like Like, we're nerfing as little as possible to make it so that the average Joe who works in and just tries to do stuff is not getting affected by it.
Yeah.
Like, it should only be the like ridiculously broken synergy thing that kind of like has some way of dealing with it that's actually affected by this. And I'm struggling to think of an example off the top of my head. Maybe you've got some of like, you know, a way that a targeted nerf that kind of like...
I mean, like, say, lightning conduit, you're not going to reduce the base damage of it because someone's able to hit for 150 million with one hit from it. Like, that comes from the compounding, like, top-end levels of exposure, stacking, conductivity, and more so shock effect, right? So it's more about, like, take away from the shock effect scaling side of things there and increase the base damage even, you know? Like, do changes like that where it's like, for an average person, it's now better, and for someone who is absolutely... abusing's not the right word, because like they're doing the right thing technically by their standards. That are using all those extreme factors, you know, bring those down a little bit, keep those regulated, and like it'll increase the average user's experience while narrowing, you know, bringing this down and bringing this ideally up a little bit in a lot of cases.
I like the idea that I thought it's somewhat reassuring to hear that there was actually kind of like a
Snorlax, hello, üdv a csatornán, köszönöm a követést, ciao ciao.
X amount of hit points. It has 500k hit points, and so we expect players.
Ja, most arról beszélgetnek egyébként, hogy ugye a nerfek, hogy meg mint, meg a bosszok, hogy ugye bemegy, és akkor nincs elég DPS, de aztán több DPS-ed van, aztán valakik találnak olyan buildet, ugye, ahol a 3 perces boss fightot lecsökkentett 20 szekre, akkor kicsit le kell nerfelni, és a többi, és a többi, és akkor most erről megy a szó, hogy ezek a nerfeket is, hogy csinálják meg. Csőde?
You get to this weird thing where now it's just like, okay, well, I think you after a while was like, I haven't actually seen a pinnacle boss fight that lasted more than 2 seconds.
That was really sad to me. Probably the saddest thing about the early access launch to me was seeing the first pinnacle boss fight, and it just like, and it's like, oh, you know, like it's like nobody had to care about the mechanics. The first time
I gave it so many skills.
Exactly, right? Like
az érdekes azt mondja, hogy először, amikor látott Pinnacle boss fightot, hogy mutatta, hogy így ment le a HP. Hát, hogy baszki.
I hope that doesn't happen again, but honestly it's probably wishful thinking.
Hát mondjuk az nekem nem ilyen volt, még az Attribute kereshe, de oké. De ja, én is láttam ilyen buildeket egyébként. És akkor én lettem lebaszva, hogy én miért játszom Attribute stackerre, mert én mekkora egy noob vagyok, érted.
So much abuse of stuff. Getting rid of that whole, I feel like I have to play X. Like, it is that very 100%. Demoralizing to players when they played their thing and all of a sudden something comes out and they're like, oh.
And so the way you will know that we're successful is because you get more diversity in classes. Because it means that there's no longer...
Műsege, de miket tudsz az új patchről? Nézzük már egy ideje.
You definitely saw that where it's like...
Érdekes változtatások jönnek, szerintem.
Another Archmage build.
Exactly.
It's just Heralds again.
Exactly.
It's like, this isn't even a build, this is just Herald again.
You go look at like, what are all crossbow people playing? And crossbows is actually the least used weapon type. And so you specifically start there and you're like, okay, well here's a bunch of people using these skills.
Kirázott a hideg? Szerinted big? Nekem is tetszenek a dolgok egyébként.
Even without stat stacking, still better.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well,
táborok nagyon tetszenek.
Take some away from there, and then it's like,
lesz új craftingos cuccok, meg ez a összetudod kombinolni a két cuccot, meg mit tudom én.
Crossbows now, for example, just a quick change is like, instead of using one-handed,
hát nem tudom, ki kéne próbálni ezt a Huntress nyilván. Tök jó lenne. Úgyhogy lehet, hogy én ilyen Huntress-szel fogok játszani. Hát most... ki kell próbálni az új karit. Bár Warriorom se volt még, de annyira nem is vágyom rá.
Most skills were very consistently growing per level. So almost every spell would get the same amount of damage per level, regardless of everything else it had. And this is how you got things like Spark just being the dominant skill, you know, out of control. Because it scales not only that, it scales obviously the number of projectiles.
Nem láttam még az Ascendancy-ket egyébként. Mi totemes lesz a Mercenary? Az új Ascendancy-vel?
And so now it's like, well, Spark has these other multiplicative things, so it should get less damage per level. And this wasn't PoE1 and was the right answer, and we somehow didn't replicate that exact thing that we did.
Yeah, everything just had the same damage growth.
Yes, we end up with exactly the same. So now every single skill we're looking at it and going, you're going to scale more, you're going to scale less, you're going to scale more on the damage axis because they have other things that scale.
And this just means that, like, when you're asking, well, what skills have changed? Well, the answer is literally all of them. Like,
Yes.
no skill will have
Nem tudom, nem szeretem az olyan buildeket, ahol nem én fájtolok a karakteremmel, hanem valami vagy valakik helyettem. Tehát arra gondolok, hogy ezért nem szeretem például a minionos buildeket. Persze, biztos jó, meg valakik szeretik, de nem az én karakterem harcol, érted? Én csak ott futkosok, az körülöttem mindent ezek elintéznek meg. Ezért nem szeretem az ilyen totemeket rakosgatok, és akkor azok majd megölnek mindent, mert az nem az én karakterem zúz. Én azokat szeretem, hogy egy barbár vagy egy warrior, érted, az legyen egy whirlwindes, egy kibaszott jó build, ahol én pörgök, bazd meg, és akkor jönnek ki mindenféle dolgok belőlem, amivel én ölöm meg a mobokat. Én ezeket szeretem. Tehát miért nem a warriornak, miért nem tudnak egy normális, egy whirlwind valami olyan build, ami über, és ne ilyen totemeket rakosgasson már le, az is érted, egy warrior, hát nem lesz
warriors. Like warrior was like in many cases there was a lot of things that it was actually not bad. Like
nekem az nagyon nem tetszett. A monk az jó, a mercenary jó, de hát a mercenary is már igazából az egyfajta monk, ugye ez az attribute stack-kel, ez ugyanaz a kettő szinte, ez is vicces. Nem tudom, milyenek lesznek az új ascendancy-k, de...
You've got a new notable on Chronomancer. You've got a changes to, like, you know, Chrono was way too much utility stuff. Like, was just my like good thing, you know. So like, you got like a good
my
thing,
bunk node.
you know. Yeah, less niche, more something. And then we've just done that on every single class. We've upped a lot of the undertaken or bad things, and we've downed a lot of the really good.
Gondolom Hunters-szel leszek először, vagy hát azzal próbálom ki.
Cycle of a couple days beforehand, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's absolutely.
If they were ready, you would have them. They're not ready because we're not finished, right? Like, and giving someone half the balance changes doesn't allow them to even make educated decisions on what they're going to do.
So it's completely pointless at that point.
So we'd rather give you everything all at once instead of just some like here's. You know,
but even once you have the patch notes, like, don't even be under the mistake
egy új tablet van,
somehow able to determine what the best builds are from
láttam. Az a, nem kell az úttal összeköttetésbe lennie, Poén. De az poén.
Yeah, exactly.
Főleg azért is, mert ugye emlékezzél vissza, voltak olyan részek, ahol nem tudtál átmenni, oda beraksz egy ilyet, akkor úgy át tudsz menni. Hát kíváncsi leszek rá egyébként.
Again, every single patch after every major patch after this, you know, you're going to have to have less and less of that, and your familiarity will be able to come in and be useful. So at least from a balance perspective at this point, like you know, it's not like.
Mit szólsz, hogy több lesz az Omen például? A Omeneknek le fog menni az ára, azt tuti. Bár bizonyos Omenek nyilván rarebbek lesznek, de ugye, hogy most minden rituál fixen egy Oment fog tartalmazni. Tehát ugye, mikor lesz tablárazás? Aha. Egy is kimaradt előtte, nem tudok betelni vele. Hát nem csodálom, szerintem is tök jó a játék. Leárazásról mindig in-game is kapsz értesítést egyébként. Én nem tudom megmondani pontosan, hogy most mikor lesz. Most volt valamikor, de aztán minden hónapban van, vagy hogy van ez, srácok? Aztán minden hónapban van valahogy, minden hónap utolsó vasárnapja, vagy hogy van, vagy mi van? Valami ilyesmi. Azt tudom, hogy in-game kapsz róla, egyébként belépsz a játékba aznap, amikor van ilyen leárazás, több napig tart, és kapsz róla értesítést in-game is, amikor belépsz a játékba. Szóval pontosan én nem tudom, mikor lesz a kövi.
Honestly, our next point with that is honestly just to get in a room and just be like, all right, let's pretend it didn't exist and we were coming up with the game from scratch.
Ma nézted, hogy craftolják, és hogy craftolják?
You know, we're like, okay, we have strength. What would we want the ideal defense to be? And honestly, it might even extend further than that. And really just see...
Hogy mi csináltuk, várhatjuk a csodát, igen? Na de már mit csinálnak? Hogy csinálják? Mesélj már.
Maybe we do end up at the same point and we do just go, okay, here are some other changes that we need to make around physical damage in particular and or something like that. But it's one of those things where at this point we just need to like...
Hát nyilván én nagyon bénán csináltam, hát ezt én nem is kétlem, én nem is mondtam, hogy jól csinálom.
It might also end up being relatively the same, and maybe it was the better answer. But either way, it's worth the discussion and worth the time because, you know, it's. I wouldn't say we're happy with it, and I wouldn't say we're necessarily.
Milyen karival játszol Snorlax?
But it's yeah, there's something not quite right going on for sure.
You're still
YouTube-on van
fundamentally
fenn vidi?
questioning some of
Majd
these things
ránézek.
and willing to go back to the drawing board on them, which is quite
Always.
interesting.
Well, 100%.
And this is the time to do it.
We drastically changed how evasion works, and I would say it's for the better, you know, and we should be exploring that with everything. And, you know, so we just need to do that process still. You know,
Jamarrára milyen szint ajánlod?
make things more like the shield
Villamos
block
Ranger
better,
leveling
as
build
we
alapján.
buff
Aha.
the ascendancies, or
Hát figyelj, az, hogy milyen szintű vagy,
the
az
other defensive arms.
igazából mindegy
You know,
szerintem.
things like armor will become better, but yeah,
Inkább a
again, it's
geared
not quite right, but I don't
határozza
have anything
meg
to
szerintem,
say,
hogy le tudod-e nyomni, meg az, hogy ki tudod-e dodge-olni a dolgokat. Ha nem dodge-olod ki, figyelj, látod, volt, aki az 3 boss letolta level 28-ason Warriorral. Ugye most a speed leveling event alatt. Szóval
or where like the hit that you took matters for the next hit that you take, and you know, just back up the full. But it's pretty good in boss fights, honestly. I feel like recovery is.
Aha, hogy jönnek ki, csodálkozom, hogy jönnek ki a 40 pluszos attribútok. És megvan gondolom a... Aha, megvan gondolom az, hogy kell ezt csinálni. Szóval valójában a geareden kell alakítani, meg hát neked ki kell dodge-olnod, vagy hát hogy mondjam, ja, is ki kell dodge-olgatnod a minden boss ilyen, hogy ha elég ideig életbe tudsz maradni, meg fog halni. Kérdés az, hogy mennyi damage-ed van, nyilván mennyi ideig fog tartani a fight.
Now there are ways around that, of course, but part of it is like a lot of the recovery mechanics, like if you're talking about things like on kill and based on damage dealt, it is a rich get richer problem. And so
de a buildeden, vagy a geareden meg ugye trédeléssel, vagy craftolással tudsz javítani.
And there's a little bit of both going on. I wouldn't say we've targeted any recovery specifically here, really.
Level 25 után már tudsz trédelni is.
I'm not going to say that there aren't little bits changed here and there, but it's more about, you know, we've really made sure to just, it's kind of hard to say exactly what we've done, because again, this is probably a thing we're going to have to look at next time, because there are so many changes that it is hard to even like understand how this is going to fit into
once
all
the
of
dust
that
clears, you might be able to see how recovery is
ja, hát ugye a damage-et fogja meghatározni, milyen hosszú lesz a fight, az, hogy meg addig életben maradsz-e, az már másik kérdés. Ha rövidebb a fight, mint amennyit túlélsz, akkor mákodva, mert megölted a boss-t. Még nem, várom a tablerázást, aha. Az csak az eladáshoz kell, az, hogy vásároljál, ahhoz nem kell prémium tab. De egyébként hozzáteszem, a leárazáskor 15 helyett, az upgrade az 15 helyett 10 coin lesz, tehát persze spórolsz rajta, de mondjuk egy prémium tabot azért, hogy tudjál eladni dolgokat, azt azért érdemes beszerezni szerintem. Vásárolni meg tudsz anélkül is természetesen. Path of Exile 2.com-on a trade-en. Rávisz persze a gyerekre, ott vagy, küldj el a Whispert, és akkor meghívnak, letrédelitek, ahhoz neked nem kell prémium szested.
Engaging and fun.
Yeah.
And also, are you getting to the point where you never get to engage with bosses? Like, if you're never, if the first time you fight a boss, you just destroy it without seeing any of its mechanics, then that's a problem. And it doesn't really say anything about the pace of combat. Like if you look at some of the Hunter stuff we've got there, like it's incredibly fast paced when it comes to like dashing around and stuff, but you still have to engage with things, and that's the key element for us. So, you know, like obviously players want to get ridiculously powerful, and we still want to let them get ridiculously powerful. It just has to be earned. It has to be, you know, like after a certain point. And like after you, like once you have finished your character, once you've sort of done everything, then yeah, you should be just like, you know, like crazy and like beyond the point of any of all reason. It's just that you have to earn it, you have to get there, right? And like that's the power growth thing. That's like, it's really hard to sort of just like smoothen that out across the whole game, but like that's ultimately the goal, right? You have to kind of get to the point of like that you constantly feel you're getting stronger. You always feel like the next, like, oh, I got this and now I'm better and now I'm better and now I'm better, and, and you have to scale that all the way to the end, because the moment that you get to the point where you're just trivializing everything.
Igen, most arról beszél úgyis, hogy a bosszok, hogy mennyire erősek, meg elsőre mennyire durván lehet letolni, vagy hogy az gáz, hogy oda mész elsőre letolod pikpak, hanem nyilván, hogyha jó akarid, akkor told le 2 szak alatt, de ja. Hát figyelj, nem tudom, hogy ezek összesen Söranion Megvárnád a Vibe-ot. Hát vagyis a ligát. A liga, biztos, hogy lesz most leárazás egyébként. Currency tab, a Premium tab, meg egy Quad tab. Ja, a Quad tab nem rossz egyébként, de szerintem drága nagyon. Nekem is van egyébként, csak én már többet költöttem rá. Én valami inkább olyasmit Currency tab legyen, az mindenképp, meg legalább egy Premium tab mindenképpen. És hát nekem még van Delirium, Essence, ezek is jók egyébként, meg azért nyilván, hogyha egyszer kell beruházni rá. Tehát ezek inkább legyenek, mint quad stash-tabed. 0.2-ben jön a Vibe. Hát persze, mert most jön a liga, ezért úgymond, hát Vibe, vagy minek nevezzük, oké. Csak, ja, ott a liga karaktereknek már új endgame map lesz, meg ha ezt Vibe-nak nevezzük, akkor végül is igen. Tehát jön egy Vibe. Biztos, hogy lesz leárazás egyébként. Valamikor. You want to be able to engage with the boss, you want to be able to fight its mechanics and do its skills. Szóval idő után úgyis fogsz még rá költeni Snorlax egyébként, tehát meg fogod venni mindegyik tabot, amire szükséged van, meg ha sokat játszol majd a játékkal, akkor úgyis költeni fogsz rá. Most jön, április 4-én. Erről nézzük most éppen amiről beszélgetnek, erről beszélgetnek. Ezért nézzük ezt. Április 4-én jön. Path of Exile 2 oldalon már visszaszámlálás is van rá. Az igaz, hát tudom, ahhoz liga karaktert kell majd csinálnod. Tehát nevezhetjük ezt Vibe-nak, de... inkább azt mondom, hogy az első season jön. Bár itt ligának hívják, de oké. Mármint csözelfi. Túlélted? Állam. Szóval, mi az, hogy amiket megvettél, megmaradnak? Hát a tabek azok megmaradnak természetesen. A tabek azok az accountodhoz vannak bindolva, nem a karakteredhez.
I love how this friggin' watching something on the second screen has become such a fundamental part of
the community's just grabbed it and it's become a thing forever.
Ja, a 4-éig még biztos nem, de addig fanoljál, élvezd és fejlődj, és próbálj meg minél többet megtudni a játékról, Snorlax, aztán majd jön a liga, akkor majd elkezdesz úgyis a ligába is egy karakter. 11. lettél? GG. Split 2, Split 1.
Once you get to a certain point, it's like, obviously you're going to want to, the music, you've heard it lots of times, like you want to have something else going on. That's fine. But I still think that there needs to be the ability to have, to have something engaging from time to time that you have to deal with. So, yeah.
It's always been a bit of a silly thing because you've got so much element of choose your own difficulty in Path of Exile, right? Like
Split 2 helyről? Nice.
But look, people always want to choose the hardest stuff, right? So therefore that's what they're judging.
Na majd megnézem.
So that's why you do need a level of economic gating to make it so that you can't go too far with difficulty without.
Közben próbálok figyelni át, ha mondanak valami olyat, ami érdekes.
Economic stuff on some level so that you can.
Yeah, you're dying and losing the map.
Exactly, you're dying and losing the map. That we have to think. Like, all that map sustain stuff is so tricky for that reason.
Yeah.
300 nyert a damage-et, tehát el tudom képzelni.
It sounds like some big advancements in that regards. So I've got some kind of random tail questions here. Are you planning in the future on, I don't think it's probably happening this time around, but on changing campaign pacing at all? Like, I feel like some of the zones are probably a bit too large and a bit too empty.
I mean, that's more about adding more stuff to them than it is about making them smaller. Yeah. Like, there's still a lot more events in campaign that we haven't added yet.
Na, terveznek a campaignen változtatni.
Things that we never got time to do, so we'll keep on getting to those.
The argument there, which I do believe in, is an area should be able to be large if it has enough interesting things. The frequency of interesting things is high or consistent.
I mean, yeah, like the size of an area is completely right. Like imagine there were no load screens. You just walked from place to place. Like you wouldn't be thinking about area size exactly. It's just, is the density of interest enough? You know, like the fact that there happens to be a load screen between one place and the other is not really the relevant
long
element.
is directly proportional to interesting.
Exactly, right? So yeah, so to me...
Ligákban van-e valami jutalom, kozmetik, vagy ilyesmi? Szerintem nincs. De most vannak droppok. Most például itt, ha nézed a csatornát 2 órán keresztül, most nálam is, akkor droppokat szerzel. Meg tudod nézni, nyitsz egy új tabot, bemész a Twitchre, és ott megnézed a droppoknál, akkor ott már gyűlik neked is például. Nem, most 3 act marad, de majd ugye, de azt beszéltük, hogy 6 act lesz. Tehát 3 új act lesz, de az nem most jön be.
I don't know how many, you know, people gonna play this or how many people stop playing before 011, but like, you know, it's worth noting again, like areas have like the fast travel thing now as well between checkpoints and you know, there's some
arról beszélnek, hogyha elég az érdekesség, hogy mekkorák a mapok, meg hogy de hogy mondta, hogy ha elég érdekes dolgot találsz, akkor élvezni fogod, és jó lesz az egyébként. Lehet, hogy több dolgot belepakolnak már a campaignbe is, hogy ne legyen annyira uncsi.
Cool.
Art wasn't quite done right, or something like that.
Yeah, it might be a bit weird. The ones in endgame, it works a little bit better narratively, but using that asset throughout the campaign, it would feel real random. So it's just a matter of as soon as the art's done, we'll be chucking those in as well.
Oh, great. So that could be after release.
It will certainly be shortly after.
Szóval később 1.0-ban lesz szerintem a 6 act egyébként.
Like that we're expecting people to play through again. Like we'll probably tweak like which content spawns in different areas and just like fiddle around a bit so that then you play it just feels a bit fresh and you know things are going on there.
Yeah, you kind of got me there. I feel like each of the zones I'm trying to think of that like feel like they're way too big is like they're also just coincidentally empty.
Yes.
So I guess that is maybe perhaps more
it's
issue.
It's the exact same problem happens in maps, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that, like the boring empty map.
When the maps, when people say the map's too big, just not.
I think I phrased it to Jonathan yesterday when we were talking about it as every screen looks the same as every other screen. It wouldn't matter where I'm standing in the map. It would look.
I think the map you were talking about was Step. Like we were looking at Step and being like, okay, well, what's actually like?
It's a big square.
Yeah. And there's nothing going on in it. And even if there was stuff going on, I mean, like it's funny because like it took us a little while to even come to an understanding of like what needed to change there. Because I'm sort of saying like, okay, well, you know, like it's very random. So it's like, you know, do you find the cold plains in D2 as to be a boring area because it's ultimately kind of similar? But the answer is, well, there's buildings sometimes, and you get like, you know, there's just like there's just a little more going on in that way. So like we need to make sure that maps feel that way too when we're doing them.
There has been a few pervasive crashes and issues like that.
Szóval konkrétan egyébként nem tudom megmondani neked, milyen testebeket vegyél meg. Vannak ajánlások, én azt mondom, hogy a quad az nem rossz, meg több hely van benne, de szerintem egy quad testeb árából konkrétan tudsz venni egy premium testeb bundle-t, ami 6 darab tab, ami szerintem összességében több, mint egy quad például. Úgyhogy én azt előbb vennék, hogyha csak mert későbbiekben úgyis veszel, majd megköltesz még rá, tetszik a játék. Szóval, de a currency az alap, szerintem az Essence Delirium, nekem sincs még unique, de azt én is akarok venni. Ezek kellenek, meg egyszer kell őket megvenni, aztán jó van, a quad az kicsit drága, mert azt hiszem a 160 vagy 165-be kerül, ez a 300-ból több, mint a felét elviszi. Jobban jársz az Essence, meg a Delirium, meg azokat is el tudod pakolászni külön. Az ilyen testebekkel jobban jársz szerintem, mint a quaddal.
You tell me about this.
Norbi nyomja? A Norbi az nyomja, nem beszél, csak nyomja, apám. Csávó nagyon ott van.
If the GPU driver crashes, what we do is we create a new device and then upload all the textures to that. The game is paused while this is happening, and then it unpauses, and then the game keeps going. And so that is what we're doing to solve the crash. And it's like it's kind of ridiculous that this has to be the solution, because like it's just mysteriously in the NVIDIA driver we have like, and we have tried to find a workaround for this. It is just like so difficult. So that in 0.2 that's what will happen. And so
while we're here, like, do the players have a workaround? Like,
well,
just to get you done, like-
you can install the driver earlier than.
Sure. What
than
about
560.
what about the Vulkan? Does that matter?
Yes. Well, but no, not entirely. It does still happen in Vulkan, but it's a bit unclear about that particular thing about whether or not that's less. But
I figured it might be
no,
a good
it
opportunity.
is
if
it
there
is
a workaround to
it is in
tell people.
the driver. But I mean, yeah, like if you install an older driver, it will
Hello,
go
Crow,
away.
köszi a követést, üdv a
All this
csatornán,
time
hello,
when
hello.
people have been saying the classic armchair developer meme, it was like, why don't you just add a bit of code that says if crash equals false?
Yeah, well, something like
It
that.
works.
Basically do the engineering
They
to
were
allow
right.
us to just
Na
recreate
most
the
azért
entire,
hallgatom őket, mert pont
GPU
ezekről a
context.
crash-ekről, meg az
There you go.
Nvidia-ról
And then don't crash, and that
beszélgetnek.
is actually the solution we're now going with. But
Ugye nekünk is volt ilyen
the thing
problémánk,
is, the other one that sucked though. is that
egyszer-egyszer, nem
stupid
sokszor szerencsére.
damn full system freeze.
Ajaj,
Because I'll tell you what, if
várjál,
the entire
lemutolom
system
magam egy
freezes,
pillanat.
there is just nothing you can do to find out what the hell caused it. Because there's no like
report.
crash report, there's no logging, there's no literally nothing, right? And it's like that happened. That happened when the
Okay,
Windows
elmentek.
November H2 update shipped, and then things just started mysteriously freezing. And my God, that was hard to track down. And you ask Microsoft about it, and they're like, "Oh, we'll look into it." And it's like nothing happens. It's like Jesus Christ, guys. Like it's so annoying.
I can feel your frustration
Yes,
is
it is
palpable.
incredibly frustrating because it's like we want nothing better than to fix this shit. So that one was fixed. Like there was some spin lock implementation that like. I don't have any understanding of why it causes this to happen, but we tweaked it a bit and now it doesn't happen anymore. And it's like there's no rational reason why this should cause the
that's
operating system
frustrating.
to freeze. And it's like there's not even a good answer at the end. There's not even like, oh, here's what was wrong. It's just like this random particular sequence of operations being done causes your entire system to freeze for no reason after this Windows update. And it's like, well, cool.
Az a király.
Like what do you do about
Igen,
that?
most arról
Like, it's
beszél, hogy
just-
egy ilyen
it's just
Windows update
terrible.
után
And,
egyszerűen csak
so
egy
yeah, that
ilyen...
one sucked.
Egyszer csak
But
lefagyott a gép,
basically
érted?
now-
Aztán
it's funny
tudnak vele
because
mit csinálni, hát
we've
most mit
fixed so many
csináljanak?
crashes that weren't the crash. So like general stability,
Every other crash
apart
is
from that
fixed.
crash, is incredibly
Like
good now.
99%.
De hát nyilván
Yeah,
a Microsoftnak kell
maybe
valamit
like-
csinálni,
yeah,
mert
And it's
nekik
like,
is kell
the
dolgozni
thing is,
rajta, de...
we'll fix a crash and we'll be like, oh, maybe this is the crash, and then it fixes like 2% of crashes, and you're like, well, that wasn't the crash, but at least it looks good to fix, right? Like
De meg, hogy megoldottak valami problémát, az kiderült, hogy ez 2%-a a crash-eknek volt,
But as I said, we have a
többit azt nem
workaround
oldották
now
meg, úgyhogy
that
vannak
will
problémák.
basically recreate the graphics device if
So you might get a
if it crashes.
pause and then
You'll get a pause
unpause.
for 3 seconds and then like roughly depending on the
Sounds like
hardware,
a
and then it will
good
continue, and the game will pause at the
Yeah, no, I
thing.
obviously just make it clear we don't want it to remain like that. Obviously.
Yes. Obviously, we'll still try and fix it, but at least it means you're not crashing, and you're certainly not freezing anymore. That's sorted out.
Yeah.
And then we found another one recently, which was like, okay.
Hát
so this-
reméljük megtalálják a
this is right?
problémákra.
Like so. Anyway, so there's that
Jergál!
Intel
Köszi a lőrkadó!
CPU issue. Like on 13th and 14th generation Intel CPUs, where like there's some freaking voltage regulation problem that causes CPUs to break in a certain way.
Jézusom, a
if that happens,
CPU-nál
then,
meg
like,
valami
the thing that will break is that like
feszültség,
the decompressor
ingadozás,
will,
hogy micsoda, ez
like,
a
it'll
voltage,
decompress something
ja.
and, like, one bit of it
A
will be wrong,
feszültség, ingadozás
literally one
okozott
bit in there,
problémákat, meg
and then
mit
it
tudom
fails
én,
like a hash check,
Jézusom.
and then that just causes the game to crash. And so the fix, like it's like things like that will happen as well. Like you've got stuff like that, and it's like, well, once again, it's like it is our problem. We have to fix it because it's affecting real users. But like the solution to stuff like that, it's just so annoying to find. And so anyway.
It sounds like
Yeah.
you've improved a lot of the unrelated crashes, and you've come up with a good workaround at least
Yeah,
now
at
for
least
that
hopefully,
one.
but yeah.
So that
Yeah.
sounds like
Egyébként jobban fut a
massive
játék,
improvement. I also
nem
just
szokott
think
olyan sokszor
your obvious
kikrasselni.
frustration is very validating for people who have been frustrated with this.
Bár
Exactly, but
mágussal
the
is
thing-
ugye
and the thing that's the
mondták,
most
hogy
annoying about
ne
it is that,
használjam
like,
azt
all
a
these, the engine team
Fireball
was spending time
szétosztós
fixing this,
cuccot,
they're not able to spend
mert
time
ugye
working
majd
on performance
becrasselt
issues,
tőle,
which,
tehát nem
is
bírja.
something else that we need to be obviously improving over time.
Ugye nem is használjuk, hogy
there's
túl
been a
sok
few
legyen
performance
belőle, az
improvements,
egy
but, like, not
skill,
nearly the number
valamelyiket
we
nem
would
szabad
have had
használni,
if we
mert
had all, 7
becrasselt
of
tőle a
those people
játék.
Sign up with
like
this.
like working on performance improvements.
Yeah,
So
fair
that's been the most frustrating thing about it.
Crashes first. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
100%. But it's like when they're kind of
We have been chipping
Mi
away at
újságírás,
some
Gál?
decent ones though. remember.
Yeah, no,
Like,
we have, yeah,
we
those
got
do
some
improve. Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good performance problems resolved.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, there was
they
that
were,
ice one that was really bad.
Yeah.
And, there was things like that. So, like, the worst offenders
Nice.
we're certainly fixing. But, and, like, I have no doubt by the time we get...
Meddig tart ez még egyébként?
each
Szerintem már
time
vége
we
fele
do a
járunk,
release
nem? Már
that-
crash-ekről beszélünk, akkor lassan
But,
vége.
and by
Esti
the time we get full
kockulás?
release, I'm sure
Helyes,
it'll be, like,
helyes.
very good.
And I mean, speaking of, I know it's like tangential sort of as well. Obviously, with we had a lot of woes around the release, but we've done a whole lot of back-end engineering work to make it.
Yes,
you know, the
yes,
launch
yes.
is-
So the launch should go smoother as far as like you know.
I mean, it was pretty
technical
good.
Stuff. It was.
Wow, it still
But-
was 5 hours of
Yeah,
not
yeah.
good.
Yeah, but like 5 hours compared to
No.
what,
This time.
days.
I mean,
is
look,
the
I'm
industry standard.
I'm tempting.
Tudom,
I'm
ez
tempting
érdekes
fate here,
ez
but,
még
like, we've made
nekünk
significant improvements
egyébként.
to
Azért 70 000-en nézik, az
to handle
kemény.
stuff, so.
So 5 minutes this time?
Well, I mean, we'll see, right? You never know what's going to go
You
wrong,
always
but it should
sometimes
be
get
much
caught
better.
out by something random. and-
Yeah, but
so-
it should be much
Fél
better.
HP.
this time.
Fél haladás az a lényeg. Ha van progresszió, az már jó.
Stress your theory, 'cause
Yeah,
that's
true.
always the...
Az melyik boss? Én már nem is emlékszem
Which one
névről.
happened?
Már annyiszor
Random kind of
2-3
chat questions
karakterre
before
fölmentem, de 3-ba. De most így meg nem mondom neked, az melyik? Az Act boss egyébként? Az a Jamarra? Én nem tudom melyik az így fejből.
It's just one of those things where like I feel like it's key to the identity of the character and like respecing like the journey of the character like it does get pretty significantly compromised.
Melyik az a boss?
If you allow for that. But I know Mark is.
Erre szokták mondani, hogy mindig az a megoldás, hogy olyan builddel kell menni, amiben kurva gyorsan megölöd, de ahol nincsenek is, nem jönnek elő a mechanikák, és akkor az a legegyszerűbb. Persze viccelek, de...
Yeah. Also do a lot of the team members of like, again, it's just that your choices should matter, and you know, it's obviously something that I was okay with in PoE1, and so there is probably a world where I will be okay, but there's got to be some level of work involved.
Ez
to
melyik
achieve
boss?
it.
Hányas
It doesn't just pay a
actbe
little
vagy
bit, go
ezzel
in, and
a
then you're done, or
elakadva
like, I wanna
egyébként?
find a way to do it if we're going to do it in a way that is like grounded
That's
and
interesting idea.
and
Meg hidd el, azért már
I wouldn't say
nehéz,
difficult, but
az
like
pont azt
requires
fogja
some
hozni,
actual
hogy,
work to do. So,
hogy
that would be
amikor
the
meg lenyomod,
compromise
akkor meg
I'm
sokkal
certainly
jobban
willing to
fogsz örülni
explore,
neki,
which I
hogy
have been thinking about
megküzdöttél
recently,
vele.
because I know every single time we come to an expansion, it's going to come
Yes.
up. So
The trial of respecting or something.
yeah, there'll be something where your character has to undergo some sort of challenge or something to do it. And I know you could argue, well, doing the trial is that, and you're
Gotta
not
make some
entirely wrong, but
sacrifices.
something a bit more.
Sacrifice a few
so
animals,
I'm
few thousand
sure-
enemies.
I'm sure we'll have a conclusive decision, or at least a level of articulation, one way or the other, by the end of early access.
Alright.
But for now,
I'll ask you then.
yeah, it's
Melyik
going to
az a
take me a bit
boss?
more time to figure out what I want to do there.
De hol tartok a
Is dynamic
kampányba?
switching between keyboard
Megszereztem
and
már
mouse and
jutalmat?
controller coming at all?
It's not in 020, but it will be coming.
It's on its way.
Yes, so
Work.
like I'm
Megszereztem.
really hoping by 030, like we should be able to get that. That is a very key
Executioner's
feature.
Finisher.
It seems like it's
Mi a
going to be hard
tököm
to
ez
juice loot,
egyébként?
to
Vajon?
loot juice maps with only one portal. Oh no, well, this question has
Megszereztem
already
a
been answered.
droppot.
Well, actually no, because
No,
there's still one
this-
portal.
this
This is a concern,
That's
and we
true,
have to do
with
something
juice,
about it.
we have to
Yes,
figure
we
it
have to
out,
figure it out.
My
Yeah.
bad,
So
yeah.
in the next week, we will actually be looking into this one.
There's a few problems around
point.
it
Yeah.
still. There are other things to come up, like
Yep.
you know, you also don't want it to be that if you did use your one portal, because it's your portal that's used, not everyone's portal
Yeah,
that's used. Because when it says
Boy,
That's actually
one
a good point.
portal,
Yeah, it's a
that's
good
one
point.
portal
I think
for
it's
up to 6 players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
so when it's 6
abomination.
portals, it's 6 portals for up to 6 players,
Melyik
which means
ez?
technically it's 36
F2.
entries and exits out of the map.
Hű,
right?
ez szopó az a boss
And,
nagyon. Fú,
like that changes
bazzeg.
things in a way where
ja,
it's like when it's down
vágom
to
így
one,
már.
it's like you don't
Oh.
want it to be that, oh, I failed the map.
Hát a fél HP az még csak az
Join my party, get in
Phase
here and
1.
finish it for
Utána
me.
még jön a Phase
You know,
2,
you
az
don't
még
want to
durvább
kind of
lesz.
have that style of play happening. So there are still some things we need to figure out with this, because it's going to promote some what I would probably classify as degenerate behavior, as well as the fact that you're probably like, oh, my inventory's full, zone out. Oh, what the? Okay, sweet. And sure, you can add a warning, but I don't know if even restricting it to just one inventory of loot like that is good, right? I would personally prefer that it's one death, not one, entry. So there's some stuff we need to figure out, but again, Jonathan and I...
Ja, ott próbáld meg kidodzsolni azokat a lightning szarokat, amit a Phase 1-ben nyom, meg ugye amikor jön a bubi, akkor állj be, amikor jön a csaj a bubival. Juss át Phase 2-be, Phase 2-be durva, de ki lehet dodzsolni egyébként a...
Can't say for sure.
Meg kell
but yeah,
tanulni,
100%, that person
hogy
is
lehet
right for bringing that
kidodzsolni,
up,
meg hogy
and,
üti
it
el
is on our
amiket
radar
üt.
for this coming week to have, or weekend as well, to have a
Nem
solution
mondom,
for.
hogy könnyű, de azért nem is annyira nehéz egyébként. A sokáig tart az a fight, az nekem is minden karival eddig sokáig tartott. Fejlődés alatt, úgyhogy nem könnyű, de hidd el, lehet
There's no
nyomni.
achievements or challenges yet.
Egy kitartás kell hozzá, az biztos.
There's not really, maybe
Fú, én nem tudom
later
hányszor
in
megpróbáltam,
early
mire
access, for now,
az
not
első
really.
monkommal
Just
sikerült.
trying to keep it more about
Elfogy a
the game and
manád?
mechanics and less about, you know,
Make the game first.
the achievements. And
Ha
the
elfogy a
achievements will
manád,
certainly, an achievement system and
van
stuff like that will
egy,
certainly be there with the full release.
mert ugye mondtad, hogy guild-testből kipakoltál dolgokat,
Is
van
there
egy
any
belt,
plans
egy
for
unique
such
belt, hogyha bekapsz damage-et, akkor X manát visszatölt.
100%.
Én azzal oldottam meg egyébként. Fejből meg nem mondom a nevét, de itt mindjárt valamelyik srác biztos beírja, valaki tudja a nevét, mondjátok már meg, léci. Mi annak az övnek a neve? Van egy unique öv. Ha azt fölveszed, idéglenesen vedd ki a guildbanba, biztos őriznek ott nektek ilyeneket. És ha azt beteszed, az megoldja ezt a mana problémádat, és akkor nem lesz vele gondod. Aztán majd visszarakod a guild-testbe, hogyha már nem kell. Meg nem mondom mi a neve, de az egyik karimon rajta van, azt hiszem.
Yep, that is one that we designed some stuff for it. We just haven't got it yet.
I want to say it's like 80% implemented right now.
Yeah. So it'll be soon as we can. We'll get that.
Csávó már nagyon nézeget kifelé, úgyhogy szerintem idő van.
On that note, we'll wrap things up today. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you so much, Mark.
Aha, most van vége.
Thank everyone
Love
for
it. Thanks for
watching.
having me here. Great time. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bekövettem, hogy most legközelebb ne legyen ilyen probléma ezzel. Oké. Köszönjük szépen. Na, akkor viszont megmutatom neked, akkor lépjünk be egy picit, pillanat. Pillanat. Gyorsan elindítom ezt is, bár nem akarok sokat játszani, vagy ilyesmi, de azért elindítom. Hát ha valaki még a dropot nem szedte össze, bár szerintem ha itt vagytok már... Restart. Oké. Mi van? Frissítés. Még most van egy frissítés. Eddig nem dobta ki, érted, hogy van frissítés. Pillanat, csak frissít. Mindjárt kitolom a képet, pillanat. Te mekkora ez a frissítés, te? 1%-nál tart. Szivat? 2%. Öregem. Tessék, addig lássátok. Jelentős frissítés. ...131,3 óra volt a közelmúltbeli játék, Ede? Te meg vagy bolondulva, öcsém. Egyfolytában ott nyomod benne. Kipróbáltad már az ACC-t? Öregem. Hogy még nem? Na már 10%-nál jár. Ez is most frissít. Ki se írja, hogy mennyi van hátra. Srácok, mi annak az övnek a neve? Ami visszatölti a manát, hogyha bekapsz damage-et? Mert fixen bekapsz damage-et, az biztos. És azzal nekem is az volt a bajom a Monkkal, ugyanez volt a problémám egyébként, mint neked, Snorlax, és azért akarok belépni, hogy megmondjam neked a nevét, ha nem írják be. Megmondjam annak az övnek a nevét, és akkor azt megkeresed, ha van a guild bankotokban, akkor az megoldja a problémádat egyébként. Csak le kell, hogy frissítsen a játék, és most eddig nem tudom, miért nem frissített a háttérben. Na mit szóltok, srácok, ez a sok újítás bejön nektek? Kár, hogy nem a Dudu jön, mi? De jó lesz ez a Huntress is, kíváncsi vagyok rá. Ilyen speares, hát mondom inkább javelinesnek tűnt, de ja, ezek ilyen speares, és akkor lehet vele millizni is, ranged is lehet. Egész érdekes egyébként. Neked nem jön be? Maga a Huntress nem jön be? Vagy a változtatások nem jönnek be? Inkább a Witch Ascendancy. Aha. Nem tudom, én még nem is akarok annyi mindent megnézni erről, bevallom őszintén, mert jobb lenne így ott szembesülni a dolgokkal, hogy újdonságnak hasson. Aha, a Huntress Ascendancy olyan aha.
Nem láttam, hogy milyenek, vagy nem is néztem meg, majd ott megnézem. Hát kíváncsi leszek rá, hogy mit lehet belőle kihozni. Ezért csak nem lesz rossz. Jó, hát most ez olyan érted, hogy ha valakinek nem tetszik az adott klassz, hát totál megértem egyébként. Totálisan. Azért kipróbálom. Senki nem tudja annak az övnek a nevét, srácok. Ezért be kell lépnem. Na, most kicsit gyorsabban tölti talán. Content reveal. Na várjál, ez csak a videó. Hol van a patch notes? Az hol van? Launch update. Tune. DJ Path of Exile livestream. Ja, itt is volt a link, oké. Okay. Ziggy D. Mi ez? Infrared Path of Exile, azt mondja, micsoda, Danger, Miss, bla bla bla, oké, okay, ez nem érdekes. Newsform X, YouTube. Nincs patch notes, baszki. Miért nincs itt? Livestream van, patch notes nincs. Miért nincs patch notes itt? Livestream soon. Miért nincs patch notes? Valami csak van. Beszarok. Down on the hand. 20 new hunter skills. With spear in one hand and buckler in order. In the order, the hunter seamlessly blends range and melee options to deadly effect. Hit and run. Hát... Ez megint olyan, ez az előre hátraugrálás, érted? Ezt nem használod bazd meg egy endgame-be, ARPG-be. Tehát miért van ilyen benne? Hát ez csak belassítja az egész dolgot, érted? Szóval én nem tudom, fura ez. New Ascendancy Classes. Add a new class for 3 of the existing classes. Aha. The Warrior, the Smith of Kitava. Ezt kapja. Aha. Hoppá, 15%. Na. Mindjárt belépek és megmondom neked mi az az öv. Csak még frissít a játék, és mindjárt megmondom melyik az az öv, ami tud neked segíteni ebben. New skills. Maximum mana, element of damage taken recovered as mana. Szerintem az, valami unique öv. Bekapott sebzés x százalékát visszatölti manának. Mi a neve? Midnight Braid Rawhide Belt. Na ezt keresd meg, Snorlax, a guild tessetekben. Hát ha van ilyenben. Ezt keresd meg. Igen, ezt szerintem ez az. Midnight Braid Rawhide Belt. Ezt keresd meg. Van kereső, tudsz használni, és oda beírod. És ezt, hogyha bekapsz damage-et, 50%-át a damage-nek visszatölti manának. Konkrétan nem lesz mana problémád. 100 plusz new support gem. Az komoly, bazdmeg. 100 plusz new unique item, amit tudjuk, hogy nem használható semmire. New Encant Asmerian Wisps. Na erről még beszéltek róla, csak a pontot... Mi ez? Micsoda? The Asmeri Spirits has made itself present in Wraeclast. When approached, these whips will flee, tehát hogyha ezeket megközelíted, akkor elkezd elmenekülni. And monsters it comes into contact with will be infused by it. Aha, tehát hogyha azok a szörnyek, akikkel ez hozzáér, akkor az gondolom ez az infused, ez, hogy átjárja őket, ugye nyilvánvaló, hogy megkapják, erősíti őket. Igen, itt írja is, hogy erősíti őket. This will also find and possess rare or unique monsters. Aha. Granted a power new... Tehát a rare unique monstersnek meg új erőteljes ilyen abiliteket fog adni, viszont cserébe ugye powerful új rewards, tehát új jutalmakat is kapsz, az jó. There are 12 distinct types of wisp, tehát 12 féle különfajta típusa van. Figyeld már, hogy néz ki, amikor így ezt kijelölöd, azt nézd meg azt a betűtípust. Az komoly ezt kiválasztani, így hallod? Na jó, tehát 12 különféle verziója van, mindegyiknek a saját mechanikája és jutalmai vannak. Na ez érdekes lesz, aha. Ja, a 7 endgame maps, erről hallottunk, ugye? Tehát itt mutatja is, hogy jön a Fractured Lake, jön ez az Ezomit Megalithes, bocs, Ezomit Megalithes, Silent Cave, és... Aha, tehát a többit azt fedezd fel magad. Igen, erről hallottunk a Rogue Exiles, ami ugye egy ilyen New Encounter. Nincs ilyenetek? De hányas szintű vagy? Vagy már 25-ös? Szerintem egy exért tudsz venni. Hányas szintű vagy? Nem mondod, a hitelesítés vártnál tovább tart, hát ezt látjuk. Csak tölt a játék, és most az itt rohadt sokáig tart. Gyerünk már! Mert ha level 25-ös vagy, és van egy exed, ami már valószínűleg van, egy exalt idorbod, akkor tudsz venni valószínűleg az AH-ba, meg akarom neked nézni, hogy mennyibe kerül, de nem akar betölteni. Igen, akkor lesznek a New Encounters Unique Strongboxes, igen, azt is hallottuk. Endgame mechanik, ugye ez a Corruption dolog, Cleanse the Corruption, oké. Midnight. Itt van Braid, Rawhide Belt. Tessék. Egy Exalted Orbért tudsz venni. Ilyet kell venned. Ilyet kell venned, Snorlax. Vagy már level 25-ös? Mert ha vagy level 25-ös, akkor itt csak ráviszpelsz az egyik ilyen gyerekre, aki online, ez mind online egyébként, ez nem. Ezekre ráviszpelsz, ide rányomsz, hogy Direct Whisper, elküldi in-game a Direct Whispert, ők meghívnak, odamész, és már le is tudod velük trédelni. Vegyél egy ilyet. És ilyet vegyél, ami 50% damage taken recovered as mana. Ilyet vegyél. Ne ilyen 42-es, hanem 50-est vegyél. Van egy exed egyébként? Hol tart? Monkomnál volt ilyen. Itt tuti van ilyenünk egyébként, csak én most innen nem akarom odaadni, de egy exért tudsz venni egyébként. Midnight. Mi kell nekünk? Öv. Nincs itt. Hol van? Másik Karimon ott maradt? Másik Karimon ott maradt lehet. ...32, akkor tudsz venni. Akkor tudsz venni, vegyél egy ilyen övet. Mert nem ezt használom, akkor félretettem ide valahova? Valahol félretettem biztos. Ne, várjál! Ez nem az. Ez a Maginords, de nem ez volt az. Itt van, aha. Egy ilyet kell venned, 1x az ára egyébként, és ez megoldja a mana problémádat. Csak én ezt kivettem a guild bankból, én ezt nem adhatom oda, mert nem az enyém, az a baj. Ez nem az enyém, de... Ja. Ja, meg egy ilyen Waystone stebet, na ilyet mindenképpen vegyél, nézd csak. Tehát ugye a currency, ami nagyon jó. Az essence is jó, mert akkor az essence-ek most még több essence lesz, szóval ez mindenképp használható lesz. A gemes, ezt mindenképpen érdemes venni, egy ilyen gemest. Tehát szerintem ne a quadost vedd meg, hanem ezeket inkább. Meg egy ilyen waystone-ost. Hogy az endgamehez a waystone-okat tud így szeparáltan gyűjteni. Mindenféleképpen ilyen waystone-os, azt szerintem elengedhetetlen. Ez a maps testebb egyébként. És akkor vehetsz, és akkor esetleg upgrade-elhetsz egy-kettő simádat, ami ilyen sima, azt upgrade-elheted prémiummá. Én ezeket javasolnám először a 300-ból. A quadot, mert nekem is van egy quadom, de azt ráérsz később is venni egyébként. Az bőven ráérsz. Úgyhogy én ezeket javaslom inkább egyébként. Mennyibe kerül a izé? Mennyi a divine? 460? Megint följebb ment. Most 460 a divine, gyerekek. Az kemény. 460. 436-ra leesett, what? Nézd meg, 436-ra leesett azonnal. Az kemény. Na jó. Mennyi a... El kéne adni. Én szeretnék... Exet. Nekem van... Az a szar. Blitz Sprinter. $600. Mennyin van? 400. $288X. Oké. Delirium. Megpróbáljunk egy ilyet, hát ha sikerül. Mégis van egy ilyenem, ezt megpróbáljuk, és akkor... Hát, hogyha ma sikerül lenyomni. Mit szóltok? Bum. Na lássuk, hát ha ma sikerül lenyomni. Van egy ilyenem, ezt még megpróbáljuk. Hát, ha sikerül.
Jó, de már egyszer sikerülne ez is. Deliriumhoz kéne upgrade. Bár most már csak egy hét van hátra. Amikor jön? Csütörtökön? Egy hét múlva? Csütörtök, péntek, jövő hét? Ez jó egyébként. 2 hit kellett volna? Oh my god. Dual string bow. Nem kell. Na, merre kell tovább mennem? Most miért nem jön elő a csávó? Miért nekem van? Most miért tök van? Itt kell tovább menni.
Let yourself be drawn into the
Gyerünk, baby! Hopp, egy boss! Egy X. Bloody beautiful. Hanyadik wave ez már? Jó. Az jó. Fél, már itt megváltoztatnak, egy több jót dob. Láttátok? Miket dobott? Még csak 9. Per 15.
You can't get rid of the exile.
Idáig már jutottam, 12-esnél szoktam meghalni kb. Amikor dupla boss jön. Ilyenek. Ott szokott a para lenni. Hopp. Na gyerünk. Hú, ez jó pici a rész. Na, ez már para. De jó. Hogy dobott lelőve? Hol tartunk? Shrine 11/15. Kettő per 15. Gyerünk, baby! Oké. Okay. Tizenhárom per 15. Na gyerünk, baby. Hú, egyre erősebbek, aha. Egyre több HP-jük is van. Látom, ott kapják a élőben threshold! Anyád! Majdnem kifingatott a genya. Jó, dupla boss. Múltkor ezzel haltam meg ezen a dupla bosson szerintem. Oké. Okay. A 14 per 15, gyerünk. Final boss is dupla? Jó, meglátjuk, megye. Csak le kéne menni, ez még tier 1 bazdmeg. Ez még tier 1, hát csak le kéne, hogy menjen. A precursor tablet. Na lássuk az útcsot. Hú! Gyerünk, baby! Ennyi! Megvan végre! Nem hiszem el! Nem hiszem el, megcsináltuk! Végre! Végre! Zsír! Juhu! Végre először megcsináltam ezt is, zsír! Hol van az a cucc? Hú, ez dobott egy csomó izét, hallod? Dobott egy csomó ilyen cuccot. Ilyen disztillt cuccokat, ez király, baszki. Ebből melyik a drága? Nyilván az Despair, Ire, Guild. Végre. De legalább semmit nem dob ez a bossja. Ja. Na lássuk. Jaj. Ezek nyilván nem ér egyik se semmit. Ez a Light Armor ilyenem még nem volt. Mi ez? Enemies in your presence are intimidated. Érez bármit. 1x, 5x. Figyeld már. Ez érhet valamit? Jó, nyilván most ezt tudom, hogy nem ér szart se ti olvasatotokban, de 10x. Akkor ez többet érhet még, mert 15x-ért, meg jó sok ideje van berakva. 25x, és korruptálják is? Lehet, hogy korruptálnom kéne, és ér valamit? Itt ha 40, aha, meg 35, meg 40, meg... Aha. De korruptáljuk. És levitt 33-15-re. Hát szakadjál meg. Hát így már biztos nem ér semmit. Rare monster in your maps. Szar. Szar. De kár. Basszus, de legalább megcsináltuk, srácok. Végre kirakhatom az első két izét. Nem hiszem el. Hol van ez? Na, itt mire érdemes rakni? Azt mondja... Fracturing Mirrors. Igen, ez plusz egy szint. Azt mondja... Delirious Monster Kidding Map provided the increased reward progress. Delirium. Dissipates 50% faster. Azt mondja... Dissipates 30% slower. Aha. Vagy waystones found in your maps has 20 chance to have random instilled emotions applied. Mi ez az instilled emotion? Distilled emotions are currency items that are exclusive drops from the delirium mechanic. Ja, a distilled emotion, okay. Distilled emotion allow you to instill amulet with a notable skill, ja. Maps can... Aha, tehát akkor ez distilled emotion, ha erre fele megyünk, az nem rossz. Nem? Ja nem, mert ez a Waystone-nok kapják meg. Ja jó, oké. Okay. Delirium encounters in your map. 25% likely spawn unique bosses. Slaying rare monsters in your maps pauses the delirium mirror timer for 4 sec. Unique bossokat. Milyen unique bossokat? Az megéri? Mi éri meg ebből? Delirium encounters in your map. 100% chance to generate additional reward type manifested delirium demons in your map. Delirium 100% increased damage. Additional reward type. Ez mi az additional reward type egyébként? Fura, hogy innen nem lehet sehogy tovább menni, hanem mindenképp ide kell jönni, tehát vagy erre, vagy erre. Aha. Nem tudom, melyikre éri megrakni. Srácok, Ranion, te vágod az ilyeneket. Ez az additional dolog, ez az additional reward type, ez jó lehet, nem? Megint 2 hit. Lol. De akkor hova raktál? Ezt kérdezem, hogy melyikre éri meg? Ja, hidegen hagyod Eli. Ja, értem. Na jó van akkor. Nem tudom, én ide rakok. Jó az. Kipróbáljuk. Fú, és itt még nagyon durván ki fogják egyébként tágítani az atlaszt, azt láttuk. Az brutál lesz, gyerekek. Az brutál lesz. Ja, és itt most vannak jó mapjeink, de most nem akarok ebbe belefolyni, mert már mennyi van? Már 4-12 van basszus. Pedig itt nagyon jó mapjeink vannak, de ezeket holnap letoljuk egyébként. Ezeket holnap letoljuk, mert nagyon gigamapeket raktam itt össze. Vannak itt, ezek nagyon jók, nézd meg. 69% quantity meg rarity alapból, ezek jók lesznek egyébként. Csak a múltkor azért nem kezdtünk bele, mert ugye még egy ilyet letolhatunk egyébként. Ha beadja rá sokat, akkor itt leszünk vagy egy órát. Mit szóltok? Menjünk egyet, nézzük meg, vannak jó waystone-jaim egyébként. Itt vannak, ezek közül választunk valamit, például ezt. Extra cold damage. Nem is csak semmit a mapon, már nincs értelme. Kitágítani az Atlaszt az elég LMBTQ slangnek hangzott? Igen, nem vagyok tisztában az LMBTQ slanggel, úgyhogy nem tudom ez mit jelenthet. De, ja. So Master D 6 extra fire damage. Ezt nem akarom, ez nagyon durva. Nincs 16-osom, az a vicc. Pedig csináltunk 16-ost, és az hova tűnt, ami 16-os lett egyébként? Én azt nem értem. Még biztos, hogy volt 16-os. Hát ziher. Na jó, mindegy. Rare Monster. Ez csak 11-21-es. Ez jó lenne. Ez durva. Ez is durva. Bazzeg. Azt a kurva. Most mit frissítettek? Fogalmam nincs. Nem tudom. Hát most lehet, hogy több időt nem érdemes beleölni, de Ranion, ahogyha játszani akarok vele, most csak így tudok játszani, szóval... Jön a liga, majd kezdünk egy új karaktert. Most addig én eljátszogatok ezzel. De hát nyilván már többen jeleztétek, hogy már nem játszotok addig, amíg jön az új liga. Shield Ground, Increased Rare, Magic Monster, na ez jó. Nem annyira durva ez a map, de ezt például letolhatjuk. No tessék, ezt toljuk le. Increased Magic Monster Pack, Magic Pack Size, 60, toljuk le inkább ezt, ez 67-es. Ja, toljuk le ezt. Ez jobbnak tűnik. Több száz diveddel mi lesz? Hát, öregem, te is tudod. Ki mondjam? Vágom, Ranion, vágom, miről beszélsz, csak én még élvezem, meg összehoztam ezt a területet, érted? Most, hát hadd csináljam már meg. Itt 83% increase quantity, jó, toljuk ezt. Ez brutál lesz. Ezt meg letoljuk. Hallod, miért nem nyílik meg? Na. Hú, de lassan nyílt meg, láttátok? Azt a... Na, drukkoljatok, hogy beadja a sok mapet. A bridge bosszunk már van. Vagy mi ez? Delirium boss már van. Na, vajon beadja? Hát egyre nem találtunk breach portált, úgyhogy ez így necces. Itt a boss, az majd a végén. De nagy zsákutca. Ja, ide jön majd a boss. Mi? Szia Járkobé! Van valami info, hogy mikortól lesz ingyenes a game? 1.0-tól. 1.0-tól. Ez szerintem fix, hogy 1.0-tól lesz ingyenes. Addig early access, addig fizetős. Nem törlöm le, mert azt ígértem, hogy kiesik a mirror, letörlöm. De még kiesett a mirror? Itt van egy breach, oké, eddig jó. Egy már van fixen. Egy amúgy is lett volna nyilván. Ó, két breach, oké. Jók vagyunk. Milyen lett a map egyébként? 120% quantity, 153 rarity. Jó, figyelj, nem rossz. Az nem rossz. Az nem olyan rossz. Az nem annyira vészes. És mit kell... Itt a harmadik. És mit kezdesz, Ranion? Kipróbálod a Huntress-t, vagy neked nem tetszik? Vagy te maradsz a jól bevált régi karaktereknél? Inkább. Indulj már meg valamerre. Az dobott jó sok minden. Hopp, még egy breach. Elonnan, robban! Fire in the hole! Fél, már tier 2-es precursor tablet. Az mitől tier 2 egy tablet? Lol? Neked nem tetszik. Oké. Okay. Itt a boss. Dupla boss. Gothic quarter stuff az nem kell. Ennyi? Hogy betűnik. Itt van még essence. Akkor 3 breach lett? Jól számoltam? Mit toltál? Ma toltál egy 374 quant, meg 150 rarity és szart se dobott. Lol. Szerintem én egy 0 bites sparkot fogok csinálni. Igen? Egy sparkos durva egyébként. Ja, az durva. Én kipróbálom. Miért ne? Én inkább kipróbálom, az a biztos. Úgyis ilyen béna vagyok, ugye ezt megkaptam a sráctól. Ilyen balfasz vagyok, úgyse tudok játszani a játékkal, akkor most itt mit erőlködjek, ugye. Na jó, toljuk akkor. Ezeket letolom egybe, majd utána lootolunk. Max meghalok. Ja, de ilyen videót látsz, de ami ilyen érdekes, például ez a craftolós, breach ring craftolós, ezt belinkelhetnéd a DC-re, mert akkor így azokat egyből meg tudnám nézni, nem kéne keresgélnem. Például. Abban segíthetnél ilyenkor. Belinkeled. Menj már oda! Kösz. Ja, persze, mindenki új karit fog tolni, hát az ilyen. Hát ez ugyanolyan, mint a D4-ben, hát ott is jön egy izé, mindenki új karit tol nyilván. Liga karit vagy seasonal karit, most mindegy minek nevezzük. Hát én se játszottam az Eternal karikkal, mert nincs értelme. Ahogy mondja Ranion is, ezzel a karakterrel már nem lesz értelme játszani. De most még érted, most még amíg nem jön ki a liga, addig még el vagyok vele. Ó, egy heavy belt! Addig még bőven el vagyok vele, amíg nem jön ki a liga. Addig még rendben vagyunk. Ja, valami van az egérpadomon. Addig még el vagyok vele igazából. Ó, egy Zafirring is van. Ó, még egy bridge-et találtam. Ne, visszamegy! Az Isten pályát. Jó, a pucskám, mi van itt? Az nem semmi. Most ez ennyi. Oké. Okay. Kövi. Az de szar helyen van te. Gyere már tovább! Ó, az jó. Jézus atyám. Van még breach. Hát nincs is több breach. Better the coin. Hát nincs is több breach. Elnyomtuk az összeset? Wikit télre. Jó. Még van a boss is. Nem hoztam izét? Ne. Azzeg. Ezt fel akarom venni a tier 5-ös. Armoros pure vesz valaki? Hm. 24 napja van benn. 3 napja. Ez 3 rezisztes, és egy divér adja 3 rezisztes? És azt se viszik. 3 div. Hát szerintem ezt nem fogják elvinni. 8 div. Hát én nem tudom. Azt mondja, hogy ez 12-5-13, az nem túl jó. Az nem túl jó. De ezt mi megválaszthatjuk. Ocean dobálós Pathfinder is tetszett. Nem vágom az melyik. Ezt a mapos dolog nem értettem, hogy minél jobb a map, annál kevesebb lesz a teleport. De egy fasz a sok bridges mapnál szopó, hogy mit viszel magaddal? Nem. Azt nem tudom, hogy lehet, hogy így vagy, minél jobb a map, kevesebb a teleport, de figyelj, hát... ja. Végülis össze tudod majd gyűjteni a cuccokat, de igazából az szerintem akárhányszor följöhetsz, vagy legalábbis én azt gondolom, hogy följöhetsz, a teleport az annyi nyílik meg, ahány HP, tehát ahány lehetőséged van meghalni a mapon, igazából. Szerintem. Nem tudom pontosan, de én ezt gondolom, hogy ennek így kéne történnie. Tehát az elég nagy hülyeség lenne, hogy ugye, hogy csak egyszer jöhetsz föl, hát baszki, az durva. Kivés, ez nem kell. Szerintem az hülyeség lenne. Oh, rarity. Darium, like his unique bosses. Egy 5-ös breach, de quantity. Oh! Oh! Ez nem olyan rossz. Nyilván nem az a legjobb, de... Minél jobb a map, halál után annyival kevesebb mehetsz vissza. Na jó, de érted? Az csak a teleport, az csak a halál után tűnik el, én szerintem. Érted? Csak a halál után fog eltűnni. Szerintem. Nem akkor, amikor följössz. Én szerintem. Accuracy, az kell rá. Na, kinek kellett ilyen spelles, bár ezen kevés a cold damage, minimumos, sajnos, de egyébként meg nem rossz. Kritikálos, meg kaspides, nem rossz. Ezt kéne megválozni, mi? Átha. Bár nem hiszem, hogy az 5%-ról ez valami nagyon konkrét. 9-6-10-es lett, oké. Okay. Meghalsz, buksz minden, de én azt láttam ott, hogy meghalt a gyerek, visszament és ott volt a loot. Nem ez volt? Egyébként. Én ezt láttam. Vagy rosszul láttam? Ezt rosszul láttam akkor ezek szerint? Micsoda? Hogy lesz? Most akkor kinek van igaza, vagy mi van? És akkor hogy lesz? Hogyha a map csak akkor tűnik el, vagy a teleport, hogyha meghalsz, de visszamehetsz többször, nem? Szerintem. Gondolom én. Nem tudom. Persze, hát csomó minden megváltozik. Átírják. Ahogy mondod. Ez mi? Ez nem kell. Szerintem igen, átírják. Egy csomó minden. Persze. Baszki, még le se toltam a izét. Mindent, amit akartam. Fuck. Nem baj, akkor letoljuk majd ott. Hát ezt nem bírom felvenni innen. Omen Scepter, az nem kell. Le se toltam mindent, amit akartam, bakker. Szemétség. Nem volt rá elég időm ennyit játszani. Na, ha legyőzted, nagy GG. GG. Helyes, akkor lehet tovább menni. Látod, és ilyenkor, amikor legyőzöd, ez a legjobb érzés, hogy megcsináltad. Ez király nagyon. Ez a legjobb. Nem segített senki. Nem helyettet csinálta meg valaki. Ez a legjobb.
Igen, gondolom, ez elég frusztráló tud lenni. Ne aggódj, nekem is voltak ilyenek. Na jó, ennyi. Összeszedtünk minden, menjen a boss, aztán haladjunk. Nem tudtad eltalálni egyik spellet, de se ilyen létezik, igen, ilyet bugoltott a karakter, az kemény. Rangerrel tolja, Lightning Ranger. Lightning erős szerintem. Na gyere te mocsok. Hagynom kell manát tölteni, mert így nem lesz elég mana. Az előbb jól leszívta izémet a manámat egyébként. Szemétláda. Nem lesz elég manám, baszki. Ne, nincs manám, bazzeg. Nem jó! Megdöglök! Nincs elég manám, bazd meg. Ne szívas! Hagyjál! Elszívtam a námat, baszki. Nice. Ledobja skilleket és nem sebzi. Érdekes. Poison Ranger meg Lightning se találja el. Az érdekes. Annak örülök, hogy végre meg lett az 1 milla alapdam a stackeren. Én már az kemény az 1 milla alapdamage, az komoly. Az komoly. Az GG. Az tényleg GG, az nagyon durva. Ezt a heavy beltet egyszer nem adta még be. Nyilván. Kapja be. Ezeket meg hiába nézegetem, úgyse veszi meg senki, hogyha jövő héten jön az új izé. Igazából már mindegy, miket rakosgatok el már. Kb. Bleach ring. $900k. 2,4 millió stacker fel. Az igen. Az zarál. Az zarál. Ó, lemerül a fülesem mindjárt. Annyi baj legyen. Jó, de hát látjátok, én megkaptam, én balfasz vagyok, hogy nekem nincs ennyi DPS-em. Hát bazd, már rég milliós DPS-ekkel kéne rohangálnom. Nincs hely már megint, jó van. Széttörök mindent, már úgyse lényeg. Igazából. Ezekre a matikra lehetne valami izé. Lehetne valami. Ezekre az katalisztekre, erre miért nincs stestebb? Erre vennék egy stestebbet, baszki. Ezekre a soulcore, ez erre sincs. Erre a soulcore-ra sincs. Igen, még tudtad volna tovább vinni, komoly. Meddig tart egy liga? Hú, nem tudom, pár hónapig. Gondolom. Úgyhogy lesz időd játszani benne, az biztos. Currency-tabon tartod őket? Ja, de hát nyilván csak azt, ami jó, csak én elteszem mindet, mert ugye azt sem tudom melyik jó. Nyilván tudom, hogy melyik az, amelyik nagyjából nekem hasznos. Többit meg el kéne adni, ez az attribútumos a jó, ez az adaptív, gondolom. De ott meg a currency-sen, én meg ezeket a rúnákat tartom most jelenleg. Ja, de várj, a currency-sen akkor össze tudod rakni úgy, hogy összesztekkel. Mi csak akkor meg a rúnásat hol tartom, érted? De félj már, és a rúnákat akkor hova rakod? Vagy a rúnákat el se rakod? Leszarod? Legyen 20 rúna mindegyikből, az csók a családnak? Vagy hogy?
Rúna nem kell annyi? Nincs egy rúnát se. Végül is minek? Nem tudom, én szeretem ezeket tartogatni, mit tudom én. Jók ezek. Ja, ez igaz. Ja, ezeket a rúnákat például nem lehet eladni. Nem veszi meg kutya semmi. Háj van. Gondolom nem lehet eladni rúnát, mi? Rún... De el lehet. Melyik a... Ér ezek körül bármelyik bármit. Gondolom egyik se ér semmit, mi? Ugye 2 az 1-ben van Exalt idén, és ezt valaki megveszi? Szerinted? Most komolyan. Ja, 2x, várjál, 4,5-be megy. Nekem van, hány ilyen Iron Rune-om van? Hol van ez? Iron Rune. 210 darab, bazd meg. 210 darab, akkor mondjuk 200-at. Így. Az 44x. Ezt valaki megveszi? Figyelj már, és valaki veszi, hallod? Beszarsz. Ezekből is tudtam volna egy csomó pénzt csinálni. Miért nem tudom kivenni? Például nem tudom kivenni. Halló? Baszk, nem bírom kivenni. $60x, tehát az nem túl nagy dolog, mert... De fél nem tudom kivenni. 28 itt van, és nem bírom kivenni, vagy most mi a tökön van? Buying, selling. De hát akkor is ki szoktam tudni venni. Amíg nem adja el az összeset. Hát nekem is van annyi rúnám, hogy tudok jó pár X-et csinálni, látod? Itt ez rögtön 44X, csak ez az egyfajta rúna. 1 perc alatt. Bizonyos százalék után engedi csak, ja értem. De hát ezeket meg most nem veszik. Na jó, hát akkor kapja be, majd megveszi máskor. Ja értem. De hát akkor a többit is eladhatom majd, ja. Van itt mindenféle desert, meg mit tudom én, van itt egy csomóféle rúnám. Én nem tudom, hogy ezt ki az Isten veszi meg. Láttad, egy csomót megvett valaki. Lehet, hogy még régen berakta, tudod a izét, azt ott hagyta a kariát. Csak... De már 29, tehát valaki veszi, baszki, nézd meg. Tehát már 29, valaki veszi. Valaki veszi. Filtered nem is mutatja. Hát jó, nyilván aki már nagyban játszik, annak ez tök mindegy, persze. Ezt aláírom. Jó, csak érted már, most már nekem se számít, mert most érted, van pár divem, meg exem is, meg mit tudom én, de... Ja, azért... Főleg az elején jó ezeket tudni, hogy például ezeket mit tudom, valaki megveszi, meg mit tudom én, hogy miből lehet gyorsan. Most én is jobban tudom, mikből lehet csinálni a pénzt, tehát majd egy új liga karakternél már én is valószínűleg máshogy fogom, lehet, hogy nem tökéletesen, de ja, már jobban fogom tudni gyűjteni akkor currency-ket valójában. Az a baj, azt gyanítom, hogy ebben a ligában is az lesz megint, hogy csak lesz majd egy attribute stackerem, és azzal fogunk farmolni. Megint ez lesz, bazzeg, már ettől félek. Hát a Huntress-en ott saját buildet nyomok elején, az biztos. Megnézzük, hogy mire jutok vele, majd meglátjuk. Aztán... Ja, aztán majd meglátjuk, mi lesz. De elején mindenféleképpen poén saját buildet nyomni, hogy egyáltalán megnézem. A Monkkal is tök jó volt megnézni, hogy meddig jutok vele. Magas szintig eljutottam, aztán, hogy nyilván tovább kellett volna még erősíteni a Monkon, a Geart, meg a stb. Tehát biztos az is jó lett volna egyébként, de hát aztán ugye jött ez, hogy akkor kipróbálom ezt is. De nem rossz, én örülök neki, hogy ezt is megnéztem. Ebből is tanultam egy csomót, meg hogy mi hogy működik, meg stb. Úgyhogy én örülök neki. Na jó van, srácok, jövök holnap, csapatjuk tovább a North Life-én a gyakorlást, meg holnap akkor még PoE2-zünk, meg letoljuk ezeket a Breach mapokat, mert ezeket még le akarom tolni, ha már megcsináltuk a múltkor, aztán nyilván már sok értelme nincs ezekkel a karikkal játszani itt endgame-ben, már túl sokat nem fog amúgy se fejlődni, de azért ezeket a Breach mapokat még letoljuk. Unalmas? Nem csinálod meg? Hát majd egyszer talán megint, majd meglátjuk. Most másokat fogok először kipróbálni, az biztos, ja. Az tuti. De jó az a stacker, nekem bejön egyébként. Én nem értek egyet azzal a sráccal, aki mondta, hogy ez egy szar, meg mit én. Szerintem tök poén egyébként. Meg hát ki tudja, hogy nerfelik le. Na mindegy, úgyhogy holnap jövök a North Life-éval, megint gyakorlunk, ugye én szimulátorozom is, aki még új a csatornán, az lehet nem tudja. És... nincs mit. Ne viccelj. Buddy Chris, nagyon szívesen. Nem rajtam múlik, én csak biztosítom. Remélem már mindenki megszerezte a droppot, ha nem, akkor holnap ugyanúgy meg tudjátok szerezni, tehát ez még fog menni holnap is. Úgyhogy holnap is lesz PoE2, én is megszereztem a droppot. Ja. Ligára kipróbálom a minionos witchet. Na hajrá! Jó kezelk egyébként. Ja, majd, hát én most először kipróbálom majd ezt a Huntress-t, kíváncsi vagyok milyen lesz. Nyilván jó balfasz leszek azzal is, mint a Monkkal az elején, de hát az nem baj, majd tanultunk már egy keveset a játékról, hát hogyha tudunk jobbat összehozni, mint a Monkkal az elején. A Monkkal se volt olyan rossz egyébként, amikor saját builden toltam. Nyilván nem voltam annyira effektív, amennyire lehettem volna, de hát az majd más kérdés. Szóval srácok, holnap is jövök, és versenyzünk, meg, vagy hát gyakorlunk az endura, meg akkor holnap még elvileg tudunk PoE2-zni is, hogyha a meló nem jön közbe, vagy ilyesmi. Úgyhogy remélem mindenkinek sikerült megszerzni a droppot, ha nem, akkor holnap is lesz PoE2, úgyhogy holnap is lehet gyűjteni a droppot, srácok. 2 órán keresztül kell nézni egy olyan csatornát, ahol Path of Exile 2-t streamelnek. Szerintem bármely csatornán lehet gyűjteni, mint hogy az enyémen is lehetett. Úgyhogy hajrá dropra fel, srácok! Köszönöm szépen, hogy itt voltatok ilyen késői óráig. Mindenkinek további jó twitchezés, youtubeozás, dropgyűjtést, játékot és pihenést kívánok. Holnap jövök és találkozunk, remélem, hogy ti is jöttök. Addig is mindenkinek további jó éjszakát. Legyetek jók! Sziasztok! Köszi, hogy itt voltatok!
Yo, step into the stream, it's sipping 127. Twitch TV where the gaming's like heaven. From shooters to strategy, he's got the range. Tune in, hit the follow, it's time for a change. Sippy 7's live, bringing that heat. Hunt, showdown skills, you can't compete. A set of course of races, feel the speed. Join the community, fulfill your need. Started from the bottom, now the views keep rising. Stream so lit, it's no surprise, man. Sippy's got the vibe, you know we stay thriving. Chat's always popping, energy's high, and Sippy 7's live, bringing that heat. Hunt, showdown skills, you can't compete. A set of course of races, feel the speed. Join the community, fulfill your need. Started from the bottom, now the views keep rising. Stream so lit, it's no surprise, man. Sippy's got the vibe, you know we stay thriving. Chat's always popping, energy's high, and Sippy 7's live, bringing that heat. Hunt, showdown skills, you can't compete. A set of course of races, feel the speed. Join the community, fulfill your need. Late nights, bright lights, gaming non-stop. Sippy 7's the name, we rise to the top. Followers glowing, the grind don't drop. Join the fun, be a part of the crop. So hit that follow, don't miss the show. With Sippy 7, man, you already know. Showdown, the settle Corsa, let's go. Twitch TV /Sippy 7, join the flow.